Hey, we're back. What is up, everybody? So, if you have not been following either of us lately, Uncle Sean is actually here in the flesh. This is not green screen work. This is a real person.
That got weird real quick.
So we've done a couple of, we did a Q&A on his channel yesterday. We did a patron Q&A. We did a podcast on his channel today. So please check out all of that. If you're not familiar with Uncle Sean, I'll put his channel link down below, but just search Sean Chandler Talks About. Most likely you've heard of him. But we're going to do one more. We're going to do one more on my channel, a little live stream Q&A for everybody before he heads home to the Texas tomorrow. Like a, 3-hour drive?
Yeah, a quick little 3-hour drive. I drive 900 miles per hour.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Nice and safe.
Exactly. So looks like we got a lot of the usual suspects in here. What's going on, everybody? So first and foremost, I know everybody's excited because we had a ton of questions today. I mean, both live streams, actually all 3 live streams that we've done, we've had to go over by at least 30 minutes just because there's so many questions. So please try not to spam. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Obviously, we're going to try to answer regular questions as well as super chat questions, but super chats will probably take priority at first. So start off at number 1. There you go. Here's a relevant one. Sean, how was Codys BBQ?
Okay, you need context on this one. I've been in Central Texas since 1988. And Central
toy,
Texas,
by the way, toy.
The Central Texas, basically, we don't have water coming out of our taps. We have barbecue sauce, and they don't deliver milk to your door in the morning to deliver barbecue. Yes. We live off barbecue in Central Texas. You can get it at gas stations, and it's phenomenal. So that's where my point of reference is. We look down on most people's barbecue because we should, because it's very poor. However, Mr. Leach made some great barbecue. Yeah. I made a very large plate of food that I ate quickly, and then I made a second plate of food that was also rather large. And people were asking, how are you eating so much? Why are you eating so much? It was like, because it's barbecue and it's good. So if ever you're able to invite yourself to his home, which almost certainly will never happen, be sure to have him cook you barbecue.
Yeah, barbecue is always a big hit. I started... I got my pellet smoker this past summer, and I spent all summer mastering, if you can call it that, whatever I do. And so I've gotten my little template meal down, ribs, mac and cheese, garlic bread, all that stuff. And that's an easy one for me to throw out. So, and making your own barbecue sauce always is like the extra little kicker. It makes you look like you really know what you're doing. I don't, but just kidding. All right, let's see here. Hope you don't get any speeding tickets, says some neat. So
it's half the fun is getting speeding tickets.
Favorite Breaking Bad episode? Mine is Half Measures. It is the episode right before the season finale of season 3. It's the episode where Jesse is starting to confront Gus and Walt because he finds out that the 2 dealers working for Gus have been using children. And by the end of the episode, they murder the child that he was offended most about. And so he takes justice into his own hands just for Walt to come at the last second. And then you get this great speech from Mike where he's trying to tell Walt about never going with a half measure again. He gets this really dark story about this couple that he used to always come across when he was a cop, and every single time they would get a call, the husband had beaten on the wife, and she kept covering for him and kept excusing it. And so he took the guy out into the desert and was going to kill him, and decided to take a half measure and just threaten him and scare the living hell out of him, just for him weeks later to end up murdering his wife. So to me, that's one of the best episodes of TV ever. I know it's not the popular answer. I think Ozymandias is most people's popular answer. I don't know.
Because Ryan Johnson is such a popular director.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know if you know specific episode name to go off of.
I really wouldn't. I mean, like, think of what moments really stick with you with the show. I mean, Ozymandias is one of those ones at the end of season 4. But it's a show you binge, and it's written to be this totally serialized show. And so shows like that, I just don't really think in terms of episodes. There's moments, there's seasons, but pausing to think episode 7 of whatever, just don't think that way about it for the most part. So
Gotcha.
With Better Call Saul, there's a pretty good chance that I'll do another watch through in the next 6 months. And being that this would be my final Breaking Bad-a-thon with Better Call Saul, there's a chance that I do think about some of these questions as I'm watching it for the purpose of that type of coverage, but I really don't have an answer. But there's a show that I can think of so many moments. Ozymandias is the one that I know the title for, but that's because everyone else says that one.
Yeah, that's
and
the
it's just
answer.
Such a shocking moment where it goes, and also like just really good and what the show is about. So
yeah. The other answer that I would give, which I'm not going to elaborate on, is 4 Days Out. One where they're stuck in the desert and the battery goes dead and Jesse pours water on it to stop the fire. I love that one. So, I'm planning on maybe doing similar to what he said. When Better Call Saul comes out, I'm going to try to rewatch them, maybe review each season like I did Breaking Bad, and then do a bunch of rankings like top 10 Breaking Bad episodes, favorite characters, or rank the character, something crazy. Yeah. But yes. I think we got a couple super chats because I see some colors up at the top here. Daniel Skinner. All right, Sean, what was your thoughts on the Lost Boys? And would you say Kiefer Sutherland's performance as the main villain, David, was awesome?
Okay.
Wait.
So Lost Boys, one of his favorite movies, Lost Boys, movie I'd never seen before until last night.
Yes.
So it was actually on my list for a while I was here that watch it with them because I knew it was a good time to do that. So finally saw the Lost Boys, and I think it's an interesting experience. It's tough to exactly encapsulate an opinion in a highly biased environment.
Oh yeah.
So did I enjoy it? Yeah. Was it interesting? Yeah. Do I fully understand it being your favorite movie? No. But that's also to say, when you watch it for the first time when you're 40, didn't grow up with it, there's certain elements
in 2022, and you got butched up Corey Feldman and a bunch of elements that were perfect for the time, but can be very odd to go back to. The golden mullet and stuff like that.
I mean, every single thing about it is stylized.
Yes. And
even how heavy-handed the soundtrack is, it just kicks in with that main song when anything happens with Kiefer Sutherland or love scenes. Like there's one song just comes in heavy. And the camera movements and everything. We were talking early on the podcast about the different amounts of effort that directors put into things. And Joel Schumacher's the butt end of a lot of jokes because Batman and Robin, but he's a director that actually had a distinct style.
Yeah.
He put a flavor on everything. And maybe that flavor was nipples on the bat suit, but it also meant just from golden Kiefer Sutherland mullet, the color palette, the use of music, and the movement of the camera. You felt like you were watching an actual distinct filmmaker's passion project.
Yes.
Thing that he this was his actual artistic expression. You just contrast that with so many blockbusters these days that feel like any director could have made them. They're directed by committee. Yeah. Just no distinct flavor. As our buddy Griffin's kind of take on Uncharted, that was kind of one of his big issues. It just felt like anybody could have delivered
an assembly line.
Assembly line, yeah. Was there some fun to be had? Sure, but anybody could have done this. You watch Lost Boys, and so much of it is so distinctly Joel Schumacher. And there's some other fun things in there of you're going to say Ed Helms, but it's not Ed Helms. The dad from Gilmore Girls. That's where I know him from. That's my taste in things.
I knew him from Lost Boys, and then when my wife forced me to watch some episodes of Gilmore Girls, I was like, "Oh, it's Max," and so I like the opposite. And she's like, "No, it's what's his face from."
It's just a lot of fun to see these younger versions of these people in such a flamboyant, flavorful film.
And it kicked off a lot of things. I mean, that was when Corey Feldman and Corey Haim first got together, and then they might as well have been shackled to each other for the rest of their careers live, as far as Corey Haim is concerned, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a movie that I grew up with, and so the soundtrack, the weirdness, the funny humor that's in there with the grandpa, the rock and roll 80s style to it, all of it is just so unique to that movie. There's no vampire movie that's like The Lost Boys. Yeah. Have you ever seen Near Dark? That's another one you should add to your bucket list. So that one's more of a Western. I think it even takes place in Texas, possibly. I could be wrong, but
Texas.
It's like a Western.
You convinced me.
Yeah, it's like a Western vampire movie. And so most people, Brian Lomax being the example, when you say favorite vampire movie, usually it's one of those two. So maybe the other one would be yours. Believe in the hype. Which cut of X-Men, Days of Future Past do you all prefer? And which Professor X and Magneto do you all prefer? That cut has always been kind of a weird director's cut because it doesn't change the movie at all. It's just like a little added Easter egg that doesn't add or take anything away. Like it doesn't change anything about what happens. So if I'm going to watch them, I probably would put on the Rogue cut just because it's just a little extra something. So it's just might as well. But it's not something that really changes the movie for me. And my Professor X and Magneto, I probably prefer. Dang, I'm blanking on the actor's name. Fassbender's Magneto and Patrick Stewart's Professor X.
I'll actually say the same. I think all four are great. No criticism towards any of them.
No, same. Yeah.
All of them are great for what they're in. I think Fassbender has just been given more for Magneto.
Yes.
Because of the journey that he goes on, the pain that you see him through. And it's just a much more compelling. Like he was given scenes that are just so intense, whereas Ian McKellen is much more established in that villain phase.
Yeah.
And then Patrick Stewart is Patrick Stewart. And they made some mistakes in ways they didn't make mistakes with Fassbender Magneto. They made mistakes with Avery's Charles Xavier in those last few movies where they just wrote him wrong, where even there's some odd things in X-Men 3 and things like that. But Patrick Stewart is just great.
Yeah. It helps that he did Logan last. Yes. I mean, that was like the cherry on top of his thing. Otherwise it'd be a much tighter conversation for me. Mr. Alex, appreciate it. Let me see. I know we got a couple more. James Jackson, who is your favorite character in Sons of Anarchy? Have you watched Sons of Anarchy? Oh, Lord. Opie. Opie was always my favorite. I think he's a pretty much a fan favorite. That's why season 5 hit so hard for a lot of us. But yeah,
hey, wait a minute. That you just spoiled the show for me that I'm not going to watch.
Yeah, exactly. That's like 10 years old.
I can read between the lines on what that means.
Yes.
Don't remember the name you said, though I do. But
I actually did have that episode spoiled for me too, because this is when people started to realize that it was trendy to watch the episode and then immediately tweet or Facebook status the biggest moment of the episode moments after it airs. So if you didn't watch it live right there, that was pretty much what it felt like.
For me, it was because I'm seeing Dexter on your screen there. I started watching Dexter because I had season 4 spoiled for me.
Yeah.
So basically the biggest thing you can spoil in the whole show is spoiled for me. But it was like, well, these guys seem really moved and affected by this. I should check this show out. And then of course it turned out to be great. But they spoiled the thing that was.
Don't be that guy, people. Don't be that guy.
How dare you, Riley and Andy? Not your Riley, different one.
Justin, for Sean, best movies Cody showed you. Great seeing you guys together in the same studio. Big fan of you two. Much appreciated. Also, Rudderless is absolutely perfect. So that's the only 2 movies that we watched during this trip. Was we watched Rudderless 2 nights ago, and we watched Lost Boys last night.
And Uncharted.
And Uncharted, yes, exactly.
And a full season of Impractical Jokers.
Yes.
Which is true.
I introduced Sean to Impractical Jokers. It took him about an episode and 3/4 to be like, really get what it was. And then after that, it was like instant fan, I could tell.
It's like, what are you watching? What is this? And then it clicked at some point. I was like, okay, now that I like these guys, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Best movies you showed. So in last place is going to be Uncharted. Because I'll say you showed that to me.
Yeah.
And then I'd probably go Lost Boys and then Rudderless at first. Probably. It's tough to say. I think Rudderless is a movie that is easier to just process because it's less than 10 years old and drama, not as stylized, and it's obviously heavy. It's not as rewatchable, but it's easier to just take in exactly what it is and be like, okay, I know where I land on that.
Yeah.
Whereas The Lost Boys is very much an 80s product that had very big expectations on it. And I was not a part of any of the things that would get me a part of those waves of momentum.
That's always so hard when you love something so much and you really passionately want somebody to watch it and you're like, but I got to make sure I don't overhype it. There's always a weird little dance. Yes. All right. Disney Nerd. The past 15 years have shown that Star Wars is better on TV, Mandalorian, Clone Wars, and Rebels. Would you agree, gentlemen? I'm somewhere in the middle on that. See, I loved Mandalorian, but I haven't loved it enough to go and watch season 2, which has been out for like a year. I love the original trilogy. A lot of nostalgia there. I have moments of the prequels that I can appreciate more so in the third movie. That was the one that I saw in theaters that I liked in theaters. And I loved genuinely The Force Awakens, but the rest of that trilogy kind of broke my heart. So I'm kind of in the middle. I think that there's some of the best stuff in the franchise is obviously in the movies. That's why we all love it. But they've also, I'd say Disney Star Wars is better on TV.
Well, I think Star Wars is best when there's a creative force behind it.
Yeah.
There's the person driving it is someone that has a vision and a plan. Clone Wars, Dave Filoni. Rebels, Dave Filoni. Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, and Filoni.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come to the movies recently, that's the problem, that there's every one movie has a different vision, and they're very much being kind of made by committee without any guiding force. And so then, like, let's get Lord and Miller to do Solo. Okay, that's outside the box. That's either going to be amazing or awful, awesome or awful.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out, not that it was so awful, but it was so different that they're like, crap, let's get the safest person you can get, Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Ron Howard is a great pick for a Star Wars director, but he is the safest pick. Mm-hmm. He directed Willow. If you don't know what Willow is, they're about to do a TV show out of it, but George Lucas came up with a straightforward fantasy adventure back in the late 80s. The person that directed it was Ron Howard. So he is literally the Lucasfilm guy that just hadn't done Star Wars up to that point. But you just kind of look at that, and there just wasn't a vision. They don't know what they want. They're just trying to read the tea leaves. They're trying to get, like, let's recruit talent, but it doesn't fit into any strategy.
It feels like a baton race. Mm-hmm. It feels like a director runs and they hand the baton off to the next guy, and then how fast he runs is totally on his thing.
And a lot of course correcting, a lot of just second guessing themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't agree with the statement in the sense of as a general statement, because, well, we still have the original trilogy that proves that wrong.
Yeah. The
original trilogy had a visionary behind it. And also part of what made it work is it is this hero's journey. It's mythology reinterpreted for the modern times. And that's not what they were really able to do with the sequels, because they were trying to deconstruct the heroes and things like that. And so there's a lot of things that factor into why the sequels didn't turn out all that well and why Mandalorian did. But then at the same time, Book of Boba Fett, kind of a bust. Not kind of a bust. It didn't work. And that's as someone that loves the creative force behind it that just said, yeah, the reason that those other ones were great is because of this creative force. That same creative force did a show that didn't have a very good story.
There you go. All right, let me try to take a regular one just to break it up. Do you all like Final Destination? I do very much. I loved the first one. That was a movie I saw a trailer for back in 2000, and I was like, that movie's going to be awesome. And I was correct. I love the second one. That's probably my favorite. I have fun with 3 and a lot of fun with 5. Really, I only think they have one bad movie in the franchise that's 4, and that's the 4th one, the 3D one. And I very much look forward to whenever they decide to do a 6th one.
Yeah, it's a fun concept. I've never been like a diehard. A lot of people around me, some of my good friends, even my wife, I think, are more into it specifically than I am. But that's just to say that they're more into it. Anytime my wife's into a horror movie, I'll tell her yes, because that's extraordinarily rare that would happen. But yeah, I mean, it's a really fun concept. Like it has something distinct about it, where there's a lot of guy with an axe. Or is it a machete? Or is it a chainsaw that guy runs around and kills people?
It's a unique style of tension.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just makes for these very interesting kills that you remember the thing. Even in the bad ones, they're so stupid that you remember it. Yeah. It's fun when you have a gimmick to it that just really stands out. And that's what that franchise has.
Yeah. I like the anxiety it gives you, where you see somebody in a room and something's starting to wiggle and you're like, what's that going to do? And then, something's starting to steam and you're trying to figure out what's going to happen, what's going to kill them for a 2-minute sequence. And they always kind of subvert your expectation and something else happens. So it's weird. It's not like you're waiting for the guy to jump out of the closet. You're waiting for something to fall and slice their head off or whatever. And so it's a unique dynamic. Aaron Anderson, as a fellow Texan, if Sean liked your barbecue, that's a huge compliment, Cody. Also, what happens if the Batman fails with fans?
Dun, dun, dun.
Then DC has a lot of problems, I would say. I mean, that's kind of been the big question mark for years now. I remember when me and Sean first started our channels, one of the biggest things that we continuously got annoyed talking about was, is Ben Affleck on? Is Ben Affleck on? There was like 7 months of, you would do a video and then have to retract it 24 hours later because there's some new information. And so for the longest time, it was when that news finally came out that Ben Affleck was not only not directing the Batman, but he was not going to be Batman anymore. That kind of felt like, okay, well, you guys are screwed. And so they've done a lot to build back up since then. Not that every movie's perfect, but ever since they've kind of got the drama with Zack Snyder and all of that out of the way, they've gotten more on a better track record for me. And so if a movie that's been one of my and one of all of our most anticipated movies for like 3 years now ends up failing more so with fans than not, that's going to be bad. Because you don't have Superman and then you wouldn't have Batman either.
I think the other kind of piece in it is it's 5 years in the making. They hired Matt Reeves 5 years ago.
There's TV shows. It's already in production.
and so it's something where it's not just that they ran with something and did it work. They spent a lot of time on it. They really how much time you need to get the script right. We're going to get Batman right. And so if you botch Batman, when you put that much time into it, that's really bad. That messes you up. Because the rumor about Suicide Squad is that he had to write it in 6 weeks. David Ayer had to write it in 6 weeks. You can see that. And so then they start trying to fix that. So then, come to think of it, it was like 6 months after that movie came out, they hired Matt Reeves. And they're like, take as long as you want. He took 6 weeks. You get 6 years to write the script. And so he gets all this time. And so if this one is one that is poorly received, I don't know what that does, but...
and I think it's going to depend on why it's poorly received too. If it's just a really hack job studio thing, like we saw with Batman v Superman and Justice League, then that's going to be like, okay, you guys just have no will left for the fans anymore. If it's something, I think at best there might be a little divisiveness with this movie, and I'm hoping it's because it's going to be a slower detective story, a little more hard boiled, not slam bang action sequences. And so that's, if it is divisive, that's the best version of divisive that I can hope for. But yeah, if it fails, we're going to have problems. All right. What do you guys think of Disney probably bringing back Firefly? Have you heard that they're probably bringing back Firefly?
I haven't heard that. That doesn't sound real for the simple fact of Firefly is Joss Whedon. Yeah. They are not bringing back Joss Whedon. Yeah. So the idea that Firefly without Joss Whedon is a terrible idea. If you totally reboot it, I mean, maybe, but like the reason that it is unique and interesting and not just a Star Wars ripoff is Joss Whedon. It is that he is the secret sauce to it. As much as it seems like he's a sleazy, dirty guy that was terrible to other humans, he was very good as a writer. And had a distinct style. So the idea that that doesn't sound real to me. Sounds like a rumor sounds like a cheap rumor that some of these websites that giant robots confirm this is happening. And the rumor, we're hearing reports that this, and it's like, you're just saying things that there's a group of people that want to hear that. So you just report it. They retweet it. They share it on Facebook. But, it's a report from your staff writers in the bathroom telling each other stuff or something like that. It's not real.
I don't think. And look, I'm somebody that loved Firefly. I'd never watched it while it was on. I found the Blu-ray at Sam's Club one day when I was like 19 or 20 and bought it on a whim and loved the whole series. Eventually bought Serenity, loved Serenity, and was like, man, why couldn't we have supported this more when it was on? I think Serenity proves that there's no financial reason to bring back Firefly, because if it was going to prove like that this has a huge fan base that just for whatever reason wasn't around the first time, Serenity didn't make a lot of money. Right. It's a great movie that everybody loves, that loves Firefly, and even retroactively made some people watch Firefly, but I don't see any reason, even if you're going to reboot it, that's going to be even less successful, because then the fans that love the original are going to go, right, I want Nathan Fillion back. I want, and
even some of the magic formula of the show is characters that, without saying too much, would not be able to be in a rebooted version of the show. Yes. Because of the movie. But yeah, so it's always been this fan favorite, this crowd thing that they love it, but they weren't I was that second generation. I missed it when it originally ran, and then my brother-in-law and sister were like, "Oh, you got to check out Firefly. Yeah, you got to." What it's like? Yeah, you'd love it. So I watched it. I loved it. So I was part of that people on the internet that like, make a movie. I was there opening night when Serenity came out, and like it didn't do terrible because it didn't cost a ton, but it also didn't make a ton.
Yeah,
and so it's the sort of thing that there's just not as broad of an audience as it feels like. It's a very loud, small audience.
Very much, yes.
By the way, go watch it.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know. Is it on a specific streaming service? Is it on Disney Plus?
I don't know where it's at, but
find it.
It's very much it's a space western.
Yes,
it's very much the lead guy is Nathan Fillion doing a Han Solo and ragtag group of people.
Every single one of the characters stand out in their own way, and even episodes that feel like they might be wasted, like Janestown or something like that. That's all about one character.
They're one of the most memorable,
and it's got
you remember the song and everything.
Yeah, and it's really important development for one character. So there's not one wasted moment on the show. Really,
there's like 13 episodes. Yeah, so it's real short run because it got canceled, but that also means it never jumped the shark. It never got bad.
Yeah.
And it was really good right out of the gate.
It's a really nice hidden gem. Random. Appreciate it. Goodfellas, Casino, The Godfather, The Untouchables. Sean and Cody, how do you rate these movies out of 5 or 10 or whatever? And what are your brief thoughts on each? Let's make it easier and let's just rank them, because trying to do numeric ratings right off the bat is weird. Goodfellas would be my favorite. The Untouchables would be behind that. Then The Godfather and Casino would be last for me.
I haven't seen Casino. Then we go Goodfellas. I've only seen it once, and it was 20 years ago. So
wow.
When I rewatch it, hopefully leading up to Scorsese's next film,
Goodfellas is like in my top 10 of all time.
Like it'll potentially change around, but I couldn't tell you any educated thing about it. I have seen it. It was 20 years ago. I haven't seen Casino. Then Untouchables. I really like Untouchables. Just like just a nice popcorn mobster type movie with just a lot of fun performances, quotable lines, stylized, and kind of unexpected performances too. And then of course The Godfather is The Godfather, so it's at number 1.
Yeah, see, the Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies of all time. Casino was a movie that I only watched for the first time maybe like 3-4 years ago, and I'd always heard the debate, like what's better, Casino, Goodfellas. And when I watched it, to me it was clearly Goodfellas. Casino is good, but it's a lot more violent purposefully, and it almost seems gratuitous. Like there's literally,
I love it already,
a long drawn out death scene in it that's hard to watch.
Well, that sounds less pleasant.
The characters weren't nearly as likable for Casino. I think it's intentional, but The Godfather is of course The Godfather, but it's also a movie I don't rewatch very often. It's a very slow burn. But yeah, everything you said with The Untouchables. So The Untouchables is awesome. That's one of my favorite, certainly top 3 De Palma movies. I thought it was some neat saying who'd win in a fight, Cody or Sean. That's his favorite question. Who'd win in a fight versus The Thing and The Blob? Have you seen The Blob? Either of them? Okay.
I remember the cover of the VHS back.
It's a big purple blobby thing that like just swallows everything. I would imagine maybe that would give it an advantage because it can just swallow up all the things. Maybe The Blob. I don't know. That's ultra fan fiction-y.
If you're wondering, has Sean seen Uncle Buck? Sean saw Uncle Buck in the theater when it came out.
Has Sean seen Uncle Buck yet? John Candy is the greatest. Yes.
I haven't seen it in a long time, so I couldn't say anything more intelligent than that. But it's a simple question to answer quickly. I have seen Uncle Buck. Uncle
Buck is one of at least 5 movies that my wife hates on a certain level just because I watch it multiple times a year. I will literally just throw on Uncle Buck. It's a comfort movie for me. If I'm not really committed to anything and I just want something in the background or just want to decompress, that is one of the movies that gets that job done. And so she will always sit down and be like, God, this movie again? Favorite Motley Crue song?
Probably Shout at the Devil.
Shout at the Devil.
I'm not a big Motley Crue fan, so I don't have one that's I'm actually like I'm emotionally attached to it. This one meant a lot to me or anything like that. But Shout at the Devil, Dr. Feelgood, I'm not going to have a deep cut answer because it's not a band I have to know the deep cuts on.
I'm a casual fan. Mine would be Kickstart My Heart, probably. That one, anytime I hear it, it's just like that's a song that gets you kind of pumped. I'm supposed to be seeing Motley Crue finally this summer. I bought tickets to their huge reunion tour that they said they were never going to do 2 years ago. And so now we're on the we're on the third delay. But hopefully this summer I'll be able to see them, and hopefully Vince Neil is better than he's been lately. Cody, isn't Scream 4 so underrated? I think it's properly rated. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of hate for Scream 4. I think that the Scream movies, with the exception of 3, are all pretty close to each other as far as the sequels. All the sequels are pretty close to each other. And so I understand people's reasons for preferring 2 a little bit, or preferring 4 a little bit, or this new one. I think that there's valid criticisms with 4. The weird visual kind of color correction thing that he did that kind of makes it look different among the franchise. Some people can argue that the motivations of the killers made it obvious. That was actually the one time I was genuinely shocked at who the killer was. But I think it has the best ghost face. I think that Jill was the one that came closest to her plan coming true. Would you say it's underrated or overrated or properly rated?
No, I think it's properly rated because it's you don't like you say, you don't see a lot of people like trashing it. You don't have a lot of people putting it first place. A lot of people, I mean, it's right in the middle where it should be. That's just like that feels like the right place for the movie.
Yeah. And
you have a lot of people that really like it, but they can acknowledge the faults, and a lot of people that have a lot of issues with it, but they have a lot of fun with it. That feels about right. That's where it's at. I mean, I have fun with it, but I can point out a bunch of issues, and I don't see a lot of people saying things that I go, what?
Yeah.
Like, and
the ones that are always like, it's greatest thing ever, worst thing ever anyway. So,
but I think the Scream franchise, people are it's not very divided on opinions. They're pretty close, and they're pretty reasonable in line.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of crazy. Texas Chainsaw Massacre this past weekend being an example of the opposite, where it's like, whoa,
what did you expect from Scream?
Yeah, just crazy differences. And Scream, the people we seem to agree a lot more.
Yeah. Have you seen From Dusk Till Dawn, the original?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen From Dusk Till Dawn 1,000 times. I mean,
you're 0 for 3 for the vampire movies I've thrown out. So
it's Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, and then the first episode of the TV show, they shot it at a diner in Hutto where I live, and they rented out the church that I worked at for the catering.
Yeah.
And so if you watch the first episode of the TV show, Don Johnson goes to this like cow pie place. That's a very famous diner in historic downtown Hutto. When Rachel came to town, we took her to this place, and so I got to eat the catering that Don Johnson ate because they gave us the leftovers. But yeah, I mean, From Dusk Till Dawn, I was all over Robert Rodriguez in the late 90s and watched those movies on loop. So I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, that came out in 96, right? Pretty sure
96 or 97.
Yeah. Okay. So I was either 6 or 7. So the funniest story, and I always remember From Dusk Till Dawn for this, and it's a movie I've always loved. But my dad used to take me to a lot of movies because he was a single parent. So either he was going to take me or he just wasn't going to get to see it. So I probably saw a few movies I shouldn't have, this being one of them. But I remember the trailer literally just makes it look like a cool, stylistic crime movie that has vampires at the end. And so we went to go see this, and all I knew was vampire movie. And I'm like, yeah, I love Lost Boys. This is awesome. And you get, 30 minutes into the movie, and Quentin Tarantino says something to Juliette Lewis. And my dad was like, oh. And everybody's like looking at him. And then we get to the part with Cheech Marin, and like, hey, and he's just like, oh my God. Oh, and then he goes inside the club. Oh no, what's going on? And I'm just like, what are you doing? Stop. And so for a long time, From Dusk Till Dawn was like this movie where I'm like, I must see this missing footage that I was not able to check out. And we bought the soundtrack because I loved a lot of the music in it. There was a great ZZ Top song and everything in it. But it's one of those soundtracks that actually puts dialogue from the movies in between the tracks. And so all of those moments that I was like shielded from are in between the CDs. And so we're outside of our trailer with it cranked up while we're outside washing the vehicles or something. And those things comes on. My dad's like, oh, and trying to like turn the radio down.
A couple other fun little. So one of the things I always dug about it is that in Desperado, he opens the guitar case.
Yeah.
And there's all these guns in it. And you see this stuff like, is that gun thing look like a penis and like, what is that, right? You see all this stuff in the case, and then they use all of it in From Dusk Till Dawn, and then that's we talked about him earlier, Tom, I forget, Savini.
Tom Savini, yeah.
I was forget his name, I forgot earlier today.
Sex Machine.
And then he's in particular the one using the penis gun.
Yeah.
Which I would not recommend, because I think that would be very painful to shoot a gun from that.
Agreed,
position.
But it is awesome. Just wanted to thank you guys for all the laughs you guys give me these past couple of days. It's been a rough couple of days, so again, thank you. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad we could entertain you, and hopefully whatever's got you down turns around.
I hope you can feel better.
There you go. Best burger you've ever had and where?
Cody made me a burger the other day here.
Yes.
I wouldn't honestly. I'm not the best food critic, but you'd made a great burger, so it certainly would be in the running. But I wouldn't have an interesting answer. But I can say he made a great burger that I would put in the running.
I'm not trying to blow myself either, but whenever you know how to cook, you know how to cook to your taste.
Yeah.
And so you can make it literally perfect from top to bottom of how you want it. And so I got to the point where I don't even like eating burgers anywhere, because with the Blackstone and being able to do smash burgers, and I've got my sauces down, just nothing matches my taste as much. So I'm going to say myself as well, but I don't mean that to be conceited. It's just literally I'm customizing it for my taste.
While I was driving down here, I found this place called Burger King, and I guess they sold the king of burgers. And so this Baconator,
the whiffer,
was apparently this one's whatever. I don't know what it was since I'm making crap up. But this Burger King made the king of burgers, so that one is the best burger. It's in Baytown, Texas. There's a Burger King there. Check it out.
I will say though, as far as restaurant burgers, which I'm not typically a fan of restaurant burgers for some reason. They either put too much meat or not enough, or the bun's too. There's always some weird thing that I have an issue with. Chili's has a burger called the Santa Fe burger that I actually love. It's a good sized burger. It's not too big. It's not too thick. It's got sliced avocado on it, which I'm very weird about avocado, but I like it on the burger. It's got a very spicy sauce that I like. There's chopped grilled jalapenos on it. The bun is good. So if I was forced to pick a burger that was not my own, I would say that one. I have no plans for a Lethal Weapon review series unless this one that Mel Gibson is supposed to direct actually happens, or I just find myself in a Lethal Weapon mood. But I do have a Lethal Weapon ranking on my channel. I believe you do as well. Okay, there you go.
I do indeed.
Motel Hill remake with a higher budget has potential. Have you ever seen or heard of Motel Hill?
I'm going to go with no on that.
Okay, so it is very much a horror comedy inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There is a man and a woman couple that runs a farm, and I think it's like he makes meat and things in town that's famous, but he's making it from people. And so it's a very... Nice. It's like halfway between the tone of Texas Chainsaw and Texas Chainsaw 2. Okay. Somewhere in the middle. Two extremes. So would I like to see a remake of that? Yes, because I think that you can either just do a straight up horror comedy remake and it would be very funny, or you can go ultra dark with that concept and it would be very cool. What's that? This one?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
So I don't talk about this stuff much, and I know you know music too. So.
Yes.
Axl Rose or Steven Tyler. So Guns N' Roses versus Aerosmith. Guns N' Roses is one of the best albums of all time.
And they have played it ever since.
And that's it.
Yeah.
The Aerosmith had the 70s, then they had a bad decade, and then they had a big comeback with a song that was in Lost Boys. And they had a comeback, and then they lasted another 13 years there of being on top. They have so many more great songs.
I just enjoy them as people and as performers more too. Like Axl Rose is very hard to like.
Right.
Very hard to like. And even though they've mended fences or just shut their mouths because the paycheck was big enough, for the longest time, he was the most insufferable rock star in the world because he thought he was the greatest. He walked around like he was the greatest. And it was like, dude, you guys made one of the best albums of all time.
Yeah.
You've done nothing since. You did the double album that has some great songs, some of their best songs, but you never hear them live or on the radio. And so you've lived your entire legacy off of these 11, 12 songs that are amongst, there's probably 4 songs from Guns N' Roses that would make my top 10 songs I don't want to hear ever again. And yes, Slash, musical genius. He's done tons of things since then. He's done solo albums. He's done. He started working with Miles Kennedy, made a whole other band. They're on their 4th album that just came out. He's done a lot of guest spots. He's never stopped. Axl Rose is the worst part of Guns N' Roses.
Yes. And then was it Steven Tyler gave us Liv Tyler and
riveting on American Idol.
Riveting on American Idol. So I think for bands, I think I would take Appetite for Destruction over any one Aerosmith album.
Mm-hmm.
But as for their song collections,
and even if we're going to go just talking about them, there's no comparing the vocal talent of the two. One of them was good for the album and the style of Guns N' Roses. Yeah. Steven Tyler genuinely had an amazing voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a voice that literally gave him hits for 30 years.
Yes. Don't want to close my eyes. How do you feel about Daredevil leaving Netflix? Depends on where it ends up. Where's it supposed to end up? Do you know?
I don't know. And what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, so that's the weird thing, because for a long time it wasn't Daredevil. We just called it Netflix Daredevil or Netflix Marvel, right. Or Netflix was synonymous with Daredevil and Jessica Jones and all that. So it depends on what they're doing with it. It feels weird that Netflix is no longer going to be the home for it, but it feels even weirder to not know where that home's going to be. You would assume Disney Plus, but it has no place on the American version of Disney Plus anyway, where there's no adult section.
Right.
And so, yeah, are they taking it to put it on some random streaming service to try to boost that up? I don't know who holds the rights to it.
Yeah, that's why it's so weird.
Are they going to continue it?
It's a Netflix original. That's what makes it like when they announced it, I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's why wouldn't, and I had just filmed my streaming service ranking.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd posted it the day after, but it was like right when they made that announcement.
You were just talking about Netflix just like losing everything.
Mm-hmm. And then using that as like an example of like, they've got some of these great originals, and then they lose their best original series.
Yeah.
Like
they've got Stranger Things now. And
yeah.
The Stranger Things and Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. And hope to God they don't lose those. Otherwise it's going to get rough.
Yeah. So I don't know how I feel about it, because I just don't know. It's like that's hearing the first act.
Yeah.
The premise, the start. And then the next piece is where's it's going to land. And then are they really continuing it? What are they doing with it? Like, they're dropping this on Disney Plus and he's going to be in She-Hulk, and what does it mean?
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
Exactly. Live Free or Die Hard unrated is off the charts. Thanks for the stellar recommendation, Cody. So for those that don't know, because I've had to hammer this point home every time I talk about the 4th Die Hard film, you can watch the unrated version. You can watch the R-rated cut. It's on, I think, all the Blu-rays that they publish now. For a while, you had to have the DVD, but now it should be common and easy to find. As a Die Hard fan, it's a pretty staggering difference, don't you think? When you watch the theatrical cut with he can't even say his signature line in the movie.
Well, the ways that they made it PG-13 are hilarious, because it's like yippee-ki-yay,
yeah,
like literally that's what they do. They just put the gun sound effect over the F word.
I remember watching it in theater, and it had some of the worst overdubbed ADR in the world. Like there's a line that Timothy Oliphant has where he says, I try to tell everybody, but then I get a thank you. No, I got a F you. And then you watch the theatrical and his tone of voice shifts dramatically, where he's like, I tried to help him, but did I get a thank you? No, I got crucified. And it's like, it sounds like somebody just came in and just was like crucified. And so the whole movie has moments like that. And yeah, that's aside from just the regular man doing the larger than life, that's the most significant trait of John McClane is his trash mouth and the way that he talks to people. So you take that out, I understand why everybody hated the ones that did hate the theatrical cut, but they have a better one. Hey guys, greetings from Canada. What are your favorite and least favorite genre of horror, excluding torture porn? Also, what's your favorite home invasion movie? My pick would be The Strangers. Well, it's not horror, but Home Alone would be my favorite home invasion movie. Favorite and least favorite genre of horror, probably have to go slasher for favorite. Least favorite, if you can call it a subgenre, the sexual assault revenge, like Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave, those do nothing for me.
Is Human Centipede a genre? That's my least favorite.
Fecal horror?
That's my least favorite right there. Yeah. I haven't seen it, but not going to.
You know enough about it.
Pass on that one. I think I would also go slashers, just the simplicity of them. But I think maybe also tying into the home invasion is your next count as home invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Love You're Next. So that's why I hadn't thought about that until the last couple of years. There's not a bunch of movies in that home invasion, close quarters, try and get out and survive genre that I immediately rush to, but I realized I just like all of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of slashers are kind of in that vein too, of people in an environment trying to not get killed by the person. It's not necessarily home invasion, but it's the same sort of those thrills of how do you gather and escape.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing, people trying to fight back, survive, guy trying to kill themselves, kind of slashers and kind of those home invasion thriller type ones. That Fede Alvarez has a number of ones that just in his umbrella production company that I dig.
Absolutely. Oh wait, how can I watch the Live for Your Die Hard unrated cut? I'm sure it's on streaming services. You can probably just search Amazon and they probably have both cuts. But if you buy the Blu-ray, they just look on it. It usually says on the bottom also includes unrated cut. Or if you get the Nakatomi Die Hard collection, it's in that one as well. JDev TV.
No, I was. Oh, my name is in this question.
There you go. Now you have to have Sean watch Banshee if he hasn't seen it yet.
He's been trying to get me to watch it for 5 years.
Why do you refer to him as Uncle Sean sometimes? It was kind of an inside joke. See, whenever we first started YouTube, there was me, Sean, Durbin from Durbania, Tyler Tompkins, eventually Jeff. And with the exception of Jeff, it might have even been before Jeff came in too. There was this in joke that Sean was older than all of us because he's got 10 years, 8 years on me. Tyler was even younger than me. Durbin,
he's a little bit younger.
He's a little bit younger. So it was an in joke. We started calling him Uncle Sean, just like we were kids and he was the older guy. So I've kept the tradition alive.
There's a whole backstory also that I was called that in youth ministry. So I told this little story, so it picked on, but it got picked up on out of context without certain things. It's not something I could just tell you real quick and you'd be like, oh, it's one of those inside jokes where I would tell you and be like, yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah. There's just too many details. It's literally like I show you a website and that I can't do all that. But it's just like a little story. So it's actually a name that has haunted me for about a decade now.
It was one of those moments where you accidentally let your friends know something bothers you, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to say it every 5 minutes for the rest of the day. Bothers
you just enough that it's funny, not enough that I care that they're doing it.
Yes, exactly.
But I haven't seen Banshee at all. He's been trying to get me to watch it. I'll say this. I've heard a lot of people comparing Reacher to Banshee.
Banshee, I would bet body parts you would love it. Like it's literally made for the gory, bloody, arm-snapping 90s action rated R fans.
It's a little bit what Reacher's like.
Yes, it's literally for anybody that might not be familiar with Banshee, and I believe it's on HBO Max. I want to say has it. Don't correct me on that if I'm wrong. Please tell us where we can watch it. But it's essentially a guy who him and his girlfriend steal a sum of money, diamonds something. And they hide it in this town, Banshee, right before he gets busted and sent to prison. And after years, he comes back to this town to gain, what he buried there, what he hid in this town. And when he first gets into town, he sees the brand new sheriff who is just getting there get murdered. And so he literally takes the identity of this new incoming sheriff so that he can stay in town and figure out where his money is. And so you literally have a criminal leading the police department. And so when, for example, there's an episode where an MMA fighter comes to town and he sexually assaults and beats a woman because nobody in town can say otherwise, he takes the law into his own hands and breaks bones. And so I show that fight scene to anybody I want to convince to watch Banshee. I'm like, just watch this one scene. I've not had a single one of them not come back to me and be like, dude, I'm on season 2. Like it's awesome. If anything I said sounds interesting to you, and it's a great show because it's only 4 seasons long, easy to binge, ends great, doesn't overstay its welcome.
And it's Homelander is the lead.
Yes.
And Eliza Dushku's in a season or 2?
Season 4. She's in the final season. Question for Sean. Did you ever get into the Scream TV show?
No, I watched a couple episodes and I just didn't think the magic was there because so much of it is the meta commentary, the humor. I just didn't get that from the TV show.
Mm-hmm. You guys are even better together. Woo! Awesome. Whee! Prediction on Halloween Ends. We talked about this on his live stream yesterday. It's a very hard movie to predict because we've had so much weird information come out about it. A year ago, I would have told you He's probably going to slip away, kill one of the 3 women at the final frame of the movie, and it's going to leave you on a cliffhanger so that in the 3rd movie, they're going to come back vengeful and hit at him with everything they have. And I was 90% right. But then they said, you know what? We've had time to think since COVID. We've had a couple of years where we paused. We don't think we're going to carry through with this. It all takes place on one night thing that we're already 2 movies deep in. We're going to make it take place years later, and we're going to have post-COVID world as a part of the movie. And that's very weird information. And so I could tell you what I hope, and this is all I can hope for, is that it's a definitive end. Either Jamie Lee dies, Michael dies, or they both take each other out, and this is the close of this timeline. They'll eventually come back at some point, but I want this to be a definitive end, not some weird ending that they can come back to in 5 years and add to it and say Jamie Lee's still pissed off that Michael's out there. And just, I don't know if you have anything different to add.
Yeah, I don't have hopes or predictions. I mean, my hope is definitive end. My hope is that the way they phrase some of that post-COVID, the way they talked about like they're making it political. It was the language of it. I was like, that's a terrible idea. Please don't do that. Not everything needs to tie. Like, the whole point of movies like this is the escapism of it, the thrills of it, and when as soon as you tie in modern reality, it doesn't do anything for the better. Yeah. There's movies that are designed to be socially relevant, and that's built into the cake, baked into the cake. Mm-hmm. That's great. Mm-hmm. Get Out. That's great. I love what that is. What it's designed to be, and it does it well. That's not what Halloween is.
Yeah. Let's see here. Thoughts on License to Drive? Have you seen License to Drive with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman?
No.
Oh wow, that might be another movie we watched.
I don't know the 2 Coreys. That's That's Lost Boys. That's Feldman. Obviously, I've seen a bunch of stuff because he's been in a lot of these other things. Yeah. But the other Haim, I don't really know his work.
Wow.
I know of the Coreys. I know of him. I know that he died 12 years ago. Mm. But as we were watching, I was like, I'm not sure if I've seen a movie with him.
Okay. I would say License to Drive is their best work after Lost Boys. It's a comedy about Corey Haim getting his license as a 16-year-old
to drive.
Yes, exactly.
That's probably where the title comes.
It's a James Bond origin story. So he's already made a date with the hottest chick in school, Heather Graham, and it's all pending him.
Well, you have me sold.
Yes, pending him getting his license, and he absolutely botches his test, and he doesn't tell anybody. So he sneaks out without a license to go on the wildest night of his life, and it's one of my favorite 80s comedies. I absolutely love the movie. So depending on how we feel, we may watch that tonight. We'll see.
So I always forget that Heather Graham had a career before Boogie Nights.
Yes.
But she's in Twins. She's she had to do this stuff 10 years before her career really took off. I always forget that she legitimately did a bunch of stuff before she became much more prominent in the,
movies
and cover of every magazine for 5 years.
Absolutely. So yes, I love License to Drive. That's a great one to watch if you guys like 80s comedies. Thoughts on Mel Gibson directing Lethal Weapon 5? I think if anybody can bring the movie back and do something cool and interesting and modern with it, it's going to be him. But it's going to be weird that you have 4 movies that are so distinctly one style, and then one movie that's decades later is going to feel extremely different because he has nothing in. I'm forgetting the director. Is it
Richard Donner?
I was going to say Richard Donner,
who produced Lost Boys.
There you go. Richard Donner and his style could not be more different than Mel Gibson and his style. Right. And Mel Gibson and his style, I don't automatically think Lethal Weapon movie. He does these big sprawling epics.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be fascinating if nothing else.
Right. Yeah. I think the big problem for me, just in anyone doing Lethal Weapon 5, 1987, plot of the first movie, Roger, and it's his 50th birthday.
Yeah.
That's the plot of the movie. He's in the bathtub, and his high school kids run in with him in the bathtub and give him a cake. That's how his character's introduced. Hey, it's your 50th birthday. He's one day away from retirement. In 1987.
Yeah.
We are in 2022, which would mean his character currently is 85 years old.
Yeah.
What? And in reality, Danny Glover is not 85. He's 75. So he's still very old.
Yeah.
And he's not on the Stallone horse steroids that keep him crazy shape.
Yeah.
And you've seen, of course, you've seen Mel Gibson in movies in the last 5 years. He actually is in like still beast mode.
Yes.
But he's also mid-60s, those two.
Yeah.
So I think
they would have to dramatically really change up what the movie is. I don't know if they would be the chiefs or the captains or something, but then you're kind of taking them out of the action.
And the appeal of the two of them, that's kind of why they needed to stop making them, is the journey of Riggs is complete by the time you get to number 4, and we're doing Why Can't We Be Friends? And they do this whole montage of these family photos.
Yeah.
The whole concept of Riggs is that you had this deeply broken man because he'd lost his family. He's suicidal because he had no one.
Yeah.
And then he's partnered with someone and finds a new family. And you go throughout the course of these movies, and he legitimately becomes a well-adjusted person again.
Yes.
Who's just high energy.
Yeah.
And has a goofy sense of humor, and is an action hero.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a movie to do after that. Once he's normal, once he's a dad, you don't have... Yeah, and then he's still crazy. He has his midlife crisis. Like, there's not that next thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with 70-year-old Riggs?
Yeah.
Like, what is the arc that is still true to what you love about Riggs and what made the first movie so compelling, and then the follow-up to it, why that was a compelling journey? And even as maybe some diminishing returns in 3 and 4, you still love to see him become this other person. And so it's still fun, even though some of the spark is gone because he's not an insane person anymore. There you go.
It's going to be tough regardless, but it's fascinating. That's for better or worse. It's going to be fascinating.
Mel Gibson doesn't direct him anything. So if he actually is interested in the idea, like, this is a guy that basically only directs Oscar bait that actually gets Oscar nominations, or deep, like literally passion projects called Passion, that it doesn't get Oscar love, but it makes $1 zillion, and the target audience, it's a beloved film amongst those people, and they view it as like this gift that this thing actually exists.
Yeah.
He does not do anything that's just like, his mediocre middle of the road thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist since his first movie, Man Without a Face.
Yeah.
So it's like one foot in the door, and then since then it's literally Braveheart and just swinging for the fences.
Yeah. Apocalypto, Hacksaw Ridge, like they're not Lethal Weapon. They're not fun buddy cop movie. It's sprawling epic war story. Jesus, you know what I mean?
Even of all the characters, like sweeping epics, Jesus is as sweeping epic as you get for the religious community.
Yeah, exactly.
The passion story itself, that's as epic as it gets for us Christians.
Jacob Movie Talk. Do you think Bond should be an A-lister or unknown?
I always say unknown. Yeah. I've always said unknown. I do not want to see someone. I don't want to see Superman as Bond. I don't want to see Loki as Bond. I don't want to see Bane, Mad Max, Eddie Brock as Bond. I always want an unknown for Bond, and that's normally my answer for any of these high-profile roles. I want an unknown.
Agreed. There you go.
Boom. Oh, that was quick. That was simple. But it's all of them. Like Robert Pattinson, I think, will do great as Batman. I don't want Edward Cullen as Bond. That's not to say that I won't enjoy the movie. That is not the direction I would have gone. Yeah,
exactly. What's up with no Better Call Saul reviews? Just haven't gotten to it yet. To be completely honest with you, like Breaking Bad's a show that I've watched like 6-7 times in its entirety. I've only watched the seasons of Better Call Saul once, and that's a show that took a while. Like, it was always good, but it didn't really sink its teeth into me until like season 3. And so Breaking Bad was something that I was just head over heels from the beginning. So my plan is, with this new season being split into 2 and coming out this summer, is that I'll rewatch the seasons in preparation for that, do individual reviews to catch up, review the final season, and then I can talk about both universes and rankings and whatever. Unless that question was for you. Like, what's up with no Better Call Saul reviews?
Sean watched Better Call Saul for the first time last year. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I totally dug it. So there you have it.
Cody and Sean, what is your favorite song? The Man Behind the Mask from Friday the 13th Part 6 or the Dream Warriors from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3? Probably Dream Warriors for me, but I love both of them. That's a song that, as far as like movie soundtrack songs, that one's just among my favorites ever. Man Behind the Mask, I love predominantly just because I love Alice Cooper.
I don't remember Man Behind the Mask, so I'm gonna have to go with Dream Warriors.
Oh. Oh, here's one I know you're going to have a lot of fun with. Are you guys looking forward to Indiana Jones 5?
Not anymore. I think there was a time where maybe I would have been.
Mm-hmm.
There's some directions they could have gone that I would have been excited about it. When they first announced James Mangold, my first instinct was, oh, I just loved Ford vs. Ferrari that just came out. Oh, I loved Logan. Cool. That's awesome. But then as soon as I thought about it, it went, Loganized Indiana Jones sounds terrible. Like a deconstruction of Indiana Jones is terrible. And what I've been saying for several years is the escapism, the fantasy of Indiana Jones is that you have this handsome, intelligent adventurer doing exciting stuff and killing Nazis in the process. Mm-hmm. It's like a very distinct fantasy that Harrison Ford could kind of pull off when he was in his late 60s because he aged really well, but even then the fantasies got lost. Mm-hmm. And then he turns 80 this year. Not like he turns 80. He was born in 1942. So he will be 81 or about to turn 81 when the movie comes out. Even Stallone on his horse steroids, which Harrison Ford is not, even Stallone is not like, can't do what he did before. Can't be that. You can't fight aging to that degree. And so it's just like it's an idea that having Harrison Ford in it is the wrong direction. And maybe we'll see it and we'll see the trailer and we'll go, I see what you're doing here. That's great. Mm-hmm. But I'm having a really hard time because, I mean, you just watch those original films and Harrison Ford is just kind of like this ultimate man that he's kind of a scummy guy in certain senses, but kind of does the right thing. And so he's just like this great, perfect version of it. And he just can't be that anymore.
Well, they kind of ran into that problem even when they did the fourth one. That's why there's so many like in jokes about his age. Like there's the opening thing where he swings and then forgets to let go and comes back and his ass breaks the you can only do that once. And it's been how many years since that one? I mean,
15 now.
Doesn't feel like 15, but yeah. I mean, so I've always been a more casual Indiana Jones fans than the rest of the world. I'm one of the weird ones where Temple of Doom is my favorite. So I'm curious about it. If they canceled it tomorrow, I wouldn't shed a tear. I'd be like, okay. I mean, that would sound like a weird idea anyway. So, like he said, the trailer will make or break it. I might see the trailer and go, whoa, that's different. That's cool. And then I might see it and go, oh, okay. CBMF, do you prefer the current film landscape of more content being made, but most of it ends up on streaming versus when more original stuff got the big screen treatment despite less content was made? I think both have their pros and cons. It's easy to look back at certain years where there was much less movies being made, but they seem like these amazing years because every month there was like a best of all time movie or something. Where nowadays, I mean, you can just look at Netflix alone. Netflix can drop 45 movies in a year. You might genuinely like and remember 2 of them.
Yeah.
So I think there is a certain conversation to be had about quantity versus quality. But we're also in a day where information, reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, all that stuff is so readily accessible that even though there's constantly new stuff, it's still very easy to kind of pick through and decide what's probably going to be best to spend your time with. Sometimes you can get some that slip through the cracks, but I don't think we're quite at the point where it's too much yet. But we might be heading there.
I think film was in a better place probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago, because there is just so much, we talked about, of just feels like assembly line when it comes to so many films. And then
it's hard to have truly original ideas now when we've been making movies for 100 years.
And the way studios are working, that they're making choices based off risk aversion. And so then an established IP, an established franchise is a safer bet than someone's original idea. And so it feels like a little bit of something is lost in that. But at the same time, I feel like television is light years better than it was 25 years ago. So I think there's just been there's been a big, gigantic shift in where the creativity is happening. There's still creative storytelling. There's still original stories. There's still great adaptations. I think with movies, there's a little bit too much. They're making too many safe bets rather than taking chances on creative storytellers.
Yeah.
And I cover big franchises. I'm a part of the problem, but like I think at the same time that like I can acknowledge that it is a problem.
Yeah. Speaking of Ron Howard, thoughts on Ransom? That might be my favorite Ron Howard film. I love Ransom. I think Mel Gibson's awesome in it. I love Lieutenant Dan in that movie as well. He's a great villain. It's got a good story. There's little twists and turns. That whole scene where he finally just loses his mind at Gary Sinise and "Give back my son!" Like that's just one of the ultimate Mel Gibson moments for me. So that's one of my genuine favorites is Ransom.
It sucks. Let's move on. No, it's great. So if you're under 30, you probably tough to understand how great of a movie star Mel Gibson was from 87 till Signs. This guy could do everything. He could be dramatic. He could be William Wallace. He could do comedies. He could be the action guy. And he just had a string of just everything he did was really good. And then he'd do like a thriller, like Conspiracy Theory, where it's kind of a comedy and it's obviously conspiracy stories, but like it had all of it. He could do all of it so well. And then his personal life, the choices that he, stuff that he did 15 years ago, it just hangs over him. And he took time off from being a movie star after Signs for a long time. And in that time he had personal issues, and that became what he was known for. And in the middle of this amazing run of films, he did Ransom, and that was my high school years. And so like I saw Ransom, Conspiracy Theory, Legal Weapon 4, all this stuff. I saw it in the theater and loved all of it. So that's where sometimes to even interpret why am I such a speak highly of Mel Gibson, where a bunch of like racist jerk guy that got drunk on it's like I know why that can be your first memory of him, or that's what people like. This guy can act. This guy can tell a story. He is a world-class director. He's got a lot of really bad demons too. But Ransom is a great thriller with a fantastic cast.
Yes, absolutely. Top 5 or top 3 comedic actors? Ooh, that's hard to just say off the cuff.
Yeah, and comedy's also it's so timely and so like,
and they're so eras.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You look at 80s comedy, you think Eddie Murphy, you think John Candy. Then you get into the 90s, it's like Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler. You look at it now, Seth Rogen. Like nobody in comedy seems to have more than about a 9-year shelf life.
And they have, if you transition into drama, like you could stay relevant. And Bill Murray still has his career, and then Jim Carrey still has a career. But being that top guy, you can't really do it.
Yeah.
And the people that do try to do that,
like
Adam Sandler, they really kind of embarrass themselves. Like it's like if you've seen his dramatic work, you go, I don't understand, Adam. Like, why are you doing this? Hasn't he been nominated for an Oscar? Like, if he hasn't, it's because people like he should have been for Punch Drunk Love. He should have been for Rain Over Me. He should have been for Uncut Gems. I don't remember if he has been nominated for.
I don't think he has. I think that was the big deal with Uncut Gems is he made a comment. It was probably joking, but he made a comment essentially like daring them, like okay, now it's my time. And there was reports coming out beforehand that they just would not even entertain the thought because he's the Netflix, the do-over guy and all that, whatever the other movies were. So yeah, he's somebody that can deliver Oscar caliber stuff. I mean, there's literally videos of him discussing things with Brad Pitt about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Brad Pitt just wants to talk about how amazing he was on Uncut Gems. He's known amongst his peers as like, dude, you got it. Like you have that there. You need to tap into that more. But he has made a career of being able to literally schedule a vacation with 5 or 6 friends and shoot a movie while they're there and throw it on Netflix.
Yeah. That's what's fascinating about it is that you look at a guy that clearly has the talent to take his career somewhere else, and a guy that also seems to have the relational credibility.
Yeah,
everybody loves the guy.
Yeah,
like when these guys, you don't hear any stories about Adam Sandler. He's actually kind of a jerk and a douchebag. The rumors that circulated, I don't remember. There was like one where he was at IHOP, and he went. There was like too long of a line or something. He turned. I don't remember what it was, but it was last year, and they didn't recognize he had the mask on. And so then there's security footage. It turned into this whole thing. But it was like the punchline of the story was, well, he's a great guy. He's totally normal and down to earth. And he had this moment where he could have gone like,
yeah,
I'm Adam Sandler. He could have done that. And they would have been like, oh, I'm sorry. And he didn't. He was like, okay, if there's a line, I'll just go somewhere else.
I mean, you could almost argue that he's given all of his friends a career. I mean, that entire era of SNL, nobody really made it like he made it. And he's kept Rob Schneider and all of them like relevant. Even Kevin James to a degree. Like Kevin James kind of took the Chris Farley role, and aside from King of Queens and Hitch, he's had trouble since then trying to really have a great
Paul
movie.
Blart.
Yes, Paul Blart was a yeah. So
made money though.
It did. So he's almost a guy that kind of spreads the wealth in a certain degree. You know what I mean? So yeah. To answer your question, probably depending on the era you're asking, any of those guys. Why do you hate Final Destination 4? I mean, hate's a strong word. I just think it's a very generic movie. There's no good characters. There's no story. Not that those movies are really built on story, but the 3D gimmick, I think, kind of takes away a lot because the movie ages poorly as soon as you walk out of the theater.
It feels very cartoonish. That's the only thing I remember. I don't remember anything about the story. I just remember like the 3D one being like,
yeah, the gore is just weird. It's very digital, and I mean the guy gets his intestines ripped out of his ass in the pool, and it just goes.
That's the image I really remember.
Yeah, exactly. And so I only saw it once.
That.
I saw that in a double feature with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. That was a fun night.
Yeah, sounds great.
Love your Cedo Chucky doll. Will you get Tot's upcoming plush rag doll good guy doll and Ultimate Chucky coming out soon with multiple heads? No, I mean. I'm not typically a guy that spends a lot of money on collectibles and figurines. That was literally a bucket list item. I've wanted a Chucky replica my entire life. Whether or not that's Seed of Chucky, it's identical to Bride of Chucky. $600 was a very hard sell, but that was literally a bucket list item. I would almost want to buy Tiffany, but Tiffany is also $600, and I don't have a bucket list for Tiffany, so. No, there's going to be different multiple versions of Chucky, and I don't really like the look of all of them. That was the one that by far looked the most movie accurate to me, and I have one. That's all I need. Why didn't you review Jackass Forever? Because I have no idea how you review a Jackass movie. Did it make you laugh? Was it gross? Yes and yes. I mean, I can't talk about anything other than that. I put out a tweet with my first thoughts, and I was like, I saw about 950% more penis today than I thought I was going to. That's about as official review as Jackass Forever as you can get.
Yeah, so I posted just a short, so like a 1-minute video.
Yeah. And if you're a fan of Jackass, you'll like more Jackass. If you're disgusted by it, there's nothing new here.
Yeah, it's the most I've laughed in a movie in a long time. Yeah. But if you saw the trailer, oh yeah, just a lot of dongs. Just know that going in. If you're okay with that, like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then you'll laugh at it.
There's a lot of bodily fluids ingested.
And if you hate that stuff, if you hate Jackass, stay clear, because this is them going all out.
They're going for broke. Yeah.
They wanted to end going more extreme than ever.
Absolutely. Francisco, Cody, at any point with his stay with you, has Uncle Sean tried to walk around your house shirtless? Sometimes whenever he's shirtless, he just he sends me like a video message from upstairs. That's about as weird as it's gotten. No. Inside joke there. I think we told the story before. There's been no less than 2 times, I think, that he's butt dialed me while he's been shirtless, and I'm like, hey Sean, hey Sean. And
it happened again.
Hey,
look so close.
Oh, let's see. We must be really behind. These 9:30. These are half an hour old.
45 minutes.
Oh, wow. Keep up the great content. Thanks for keeping me entertained during a hard time. Have you seen The Fallout on HBO Max? It's heavy, but I highly recommend. I have not. Never even heard of it.
No, I don't know what that is.
I'm glad you've enjoyed the content, but yeah, I've not heard of it. Let me try to quickly get caught up. Would you rather see Nolan's Spider-Man or Raimi's Batman? They both sound like terrible ideas.
Nolan's Spider-Man just is a total misfit. It doesn't. You can look at his movies. He's not interested in teenagers. Yeah. How many teenage youthful kids are in his movies? Are there any? That's not what he does. So Raimi's Batman, at least there's some sort of idea there. In particular, if you think of like he did Dark Man, his own standalone superhero story, and then he did some work with Danny Elfman, so you could see him doing a very much Tim Burton-esque version of Batman, but it would be Tim Burton-esque. It wouldn't be Nolan's Batman. It would be much more going back to 1989. But I don't see Nolan doing Spider-Man at all. That just seems like a total misfit.
Yeah, that would be very weird. I can agree. Yeah. Raimi's Batman would have to be like, I don't think you could do it now. I think that would have to be like a 90s version of Batman or something. Did you make Sean ribs or steak? I made ribs. Steak, I did not pull out.
And the phrase we used was barbecue, and so I don't know that anyone when they say barbecue means steak.
No, that would be grilling. But
grilling or brisket is in the ballpark, but you call it brisket. You know, like I'm making you barbecue. You don't mean a steak.
Yeah,
that's not what. No one uses that language.
Yes,
in the Texas
or the Georgia.
Yeah.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or Uncle Buck. I mean, you're basically asking me to pick my favorite child at that point, but I do have Planes, Trains, and Automobiles 1 or 2 slots higher on my official top 50 comedies. But I mean, if you made me pick either one of them, I would hate you for the rest of my life. So
I easily go Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but this is actually one where one of the few examples I have one of my dad's stories. Don't have many movie stories about dad, but he described like, yeah, it's like kind of like a sequel to it, but it's not really. That's the way he kind of describes playing kind of like the same character. And that was like his selling point to us. But that's there's only a handful of stories I have like this with my dad, and it happens to be comparing these two movies. That's really my Uncle Buck memory. I mean, I've seen it a number of times, but just because I have so few dad stories about movies, that becomes the more important thing that I remember about Uncle Buck, him comparing it to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Yeah, it's accepted in Planes, Trains, and I think we saw Uncle Buck first. Then he went, oh, then you got to watch it. It's basically the movie that, except there's this great scene where he cusses a guy out. Of course, that's where my dad went.
Absolutely. I mean, I watch Planes, Trains. I have to watch it on Thanksgiving Day every single year. So yeah, razor thin edge Planes, Trains. Thoughts on Underworld? I genuinely love the first 2, but I'm a sucker for vampire werewolf stuff, and I like Len Wiseman a lot more than it seems the rest of the world does. After that, I can take or leave. I mean, 3 is an interesting prequel, but it's dark and not in the tonal sense. It's like they had about 5 lights on set. 4 and 5, I think, are very generic. Is there 6 of them, or is it 4 and 5? 4 and 5. Yeah, I think the 2 directed by Len Wiseman are actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think there's some fun mythology. I mean, is it like B movies, schlocky, intentionally, from that post Matrix era, where at the time, like maybe if you watch it now, it doesn't immediately scream out to you, but at the time the first Underworld came out, all of us were rolling our eyes at the blatant Matrix influence with the
it was also leather. The same era as Resident Evil too, so it was like, who's going to be the next female Neo, and they were kind of competing for a while there.
And but they're fun and easy to watch. My wife really likes kind of mythology type stuff like that. So franchises like that, this is one that she's into more so than you would normally think. And I think I agree with you about Len Wiseman, of kind of one of these guys that should have done more this last decade. There's more to him than I think he's given credit for. And, you know, if your first movie is Underworld, that's a great start. I'm with you on Live Free or Die Hard. I've always liked that movie, even when it was PG-13. I was like, this is a fun action movie. If you just like the fact that there wasn't F words, it was weird, but it wasn't like, that doesn't make a movie not entertaining. And then I thought his Total Recall was felt like a fact. Like, that's just a bad assignment. Taking Paul Verhoeven, who has such a distinct style, such a distinct flavor, and then be like, make a PG-13 version of that.
And they've done that twice. It's just,
and both of them, it was like, this is a terrible assignment to be the person that has to make the mainstream version of a Paul Verhoeven, PG-13 mainstream version of Paul Verhoeven. So I don't really blame him for being the issue. There was the project itself was always going to be like very milquetoast and bland and vanilla. So what's he done in the last 8 years?
He hasn't done anything, I think, since Total Recall. He was supposed to direct the new Die Hard. When they were
McClane,
the McClane, where they were tossing around the idea of it being like a prequel storyline with a younger John McClane that was, I guess, going to take over the franchise, and then some side story that old Bruce Willis was going to be on. But obviously, that's gone kaput now. So, as far as I know,
So, last thing he directed was that, and then the thing that he's currently attached to is Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's what he's attached to.
Spinoff of what character?
The ballerina. When the third one, he goes to his people that kind of raised him, and there's ballerinas there.
I'm blanking on 3. I guess that shows how invested I was in 3.
So he's going for help, and he goes back to the people that kind of raised him, and he like begs them, I need your help. And they
cuts his finger off.
That's later. That's when he goes and talks to people. So he begs them for help for the passage. And then later on, Mark Dacascos comes in and like slowly kills all the people that helped him.
Yes, I remember now.
So then Ballerina, in theory, is the spinoff tied to them.
Very weird choice for a John Wick spinoff, I would think you would do it on like the Continental or something like that, something more standout.
And so I think that they're doing a TV show on Continental.
Oh, there you go.
So that is happening as a TV show.
He got the second idea. Showed up too late.
Which I think as a TV show probably even makes more sense for the Continental because of the inherent nature of a hotel. But yeah, that's the thing. In 9 years now, that's the thing he's attached to. It's clearly not coming out this year, so he's going to have 10 years go by without a movie. And I think that's a waste.
This is an absolute tangent, but have you ever heard the Hulk Hogan tell the story about how he almost got the George Foreman grill? Okay, that made me think of it. Like they had the idea of the Continental, and they were waiting for directors to come claim ideas.
Oh, to be the spokesman. I see what you're saying. Okay,
yeah. So
okay.
They were
I
giving,
see where this is going.
Yeah, they were giving like sports icons these different little infomercial gadgets or whatever, and he was supposed to be there during this time, and his wife was giving him a bunch of shit, and so he had to reschedule to be husband. And so he became the spokesperson for the Hulk Hogan bullet blender. And George Foreman got his slot and got the grill that became the best-selling infomercial of all time. Will either of you review Frailty? I've talked about it a bunch of times. I'm sure I'll review it at some point. Have you seen Frailty, Bill Paxton?
Yeah. I mean, I think I had it in my top 10 horror movies. This was caused first-year marriage problems for Jennifer and I. Because she doesn't do horror. And without wanting to go into too many details about the movie, it involves kids and a father who might be crazy and he's trying to kill people and he's raising his kids in this worldview. And it messed with her with where the movie goes and how it plays out. And young Matthew McConaughey's in it. And so it's just a like really cool little thriller with clever ideas.
It's one of the few movies I can think of that have multiple twists and every single one enhances the previous one. It never goes too far.
And as I just said, it's so effective that my wife kind of like freaked out. Like she legitimately freaked out. Like she has certain fears of death and certain ideas that just really mess with her. Because it's not graphic. It's not that at all.
No.
But if a movie's job is to get a response from you, that movie got a response from her, and you learn something through mistakes. Don't show your wife that movie.
So if you review it, she has to join you. It's got to be a twofer.
Whew.
Matthew, who wins in a fight, Dark Knight Rises Bane or Batman v Superman's Batman? I mean, well, Christian Bale's Batman beat that Bane, so I think Ben Affleck's Batman would probably beat him even faster. Dale Strong, have you ever dealt with a rude customer that actually apologized to you later on? Trying to think of my time in when I've had jobs dealing with the public. I don't think so. The only times I've dealt with rude people was probably when I was at Target, and you have, now they call them Karens. You have the Karens, but I don't think I've ever had one come back and apologize. Like I remember one distinctly where she was flipping out at my customer service rep that was behind the desk because her card was getting denied. Fun fact, during the holiday season, the credit card companies and banks will be extra cautious. So if you go out and spend $600-700 in a day for Christmas stuff that you don't normally spend, they're probably going to deny you. It doesn't mean that you're broke and you should get out of the store and go take a shower. It means, hey, call your bank and they'll release the flag. So I had to explain that to her, but there was no I'm sorry. It was just oh okay. So I don't know if you have any different story, but
no, I don't have any stories that relate to the nature of the question.
Cody, Sean, debate on Child's Play 2 and 3. I think the only debate that we would have is that I genuinely love Child's Play 3, which has a lot to do with nostalgia and because it was my first horror film, whereas Sean doesn't have the rose-colored glasses, so he's among the people that probably have it at the bottom 2, bottom 3, I would imagine.
I think so. I'm not. It's not. This is a franchise that you're much more passionate about. So like I've watched the pieces of the Chucky movies going back to the 90s and I've seen the original one, but I didn't watch all of them until whenever I did my first ranking of them. So I've watched through all of them 2 times. Yeah. And I've watched the first one many more times than that. Not a ton though. And then numbers 2 and 3 were always on cable. And so then I saw them out of order in pieces. And in particular, like I saw the beginning of 2 with the guy being choked in like so many times growing up. But I just don't have as much of an investment to have a debate or argue or anything like that. Like I can tell you I actually can't even tell you what my ranking was, but I just don't. I'm not as invested to have a passionate opinion to fight over with you.
Exactly.
And you're the person.
Nor do I have the passion to argue somebody when I totally can understand your point of view if you didn't have nostalgia for it.
So, and obviously, Child's Play 2 in last place.
Yes.
And Seed of Chucky in first.
Number 1. Yes, absolutely.
Like everyone else.
That's the correct ranking, right? I genuinely appreciate everybody's generosity, guys. But if you have not already submitted a super chat, please do not. We're going to try to power through these. I'm almost an hour behind as it is, as far as when these questions were submitted. So we're going to try to power through these. So please, if you haven't already submitted one, please don't. We're going to try to get through these. If it doesn't take another 30 minutes, we might take a few more in between. But I'm playing catch up right now. We need a new entry in Friday the 13th franchise. Are either of you fans of it?
I've never even heard of this franchise. What's it about?
I think it's a love story, like something about like the Saturday the 14th is Valentine's Day.
Gotcha. They're perfect.
Yeah. He's probably more of a fan than I am. I think he grew up with.
That's the one that I did watch.
Okay.
Where like I talk about
that was the one that I did not grow up with. The only one.
More so than any of the others. Late at night on cable, they would come on. So I watched these. These are the ones I have the most nostalgia for. The early '90s first watching slasher films. This was the one for me. And then also I saw I guess it's the last one that came out at a press screening long before I was involved in this industry and reviewed movies. Just public passes, and so I saw it like 2 weeks before it came out. And then when I have such fond memories of seeing Jason X in the theater with some of my most obnoxious friends.
Oh yeah,
that's a great movie to watch with your most obnoxious friends. And then Freddy vs. Jason opening night with the people most excited to see that movie. So I have such fond memories of watching those. Yeah, it sucks that there's all these legal issues that have stopped them from making another one. It seems like there'd be so many ways to do so. It's a franchise you don't need to overthink. And if you want my thoughts on what they should do, I actually on my Instagram page, like 2 months back, with another guy, we competed to do pitches for Friday the 13th. I wrote my own whole pitch for what I would do for a Friday the 13th movie.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll say the big four. I'll say Chucky's number 4. He is for me. Of the big four, Jason was the one that I just completely missed out on as a kid. I knew all the Freddys. I knew all the Chuckies. They were my 2 boys. Halloween, I had seen about half of them. I saw H2O in theaters. I'd seen 1 and 2 numerous times. I think I rented 6 when it came out and immediately forgot what that one was about. But Jason, I had no experience with until my dad kept telling me about Freddy versus Jason. He's like, hey, they're supposed to be making this Freddy versus Jason because it was rumored for like 15 years. Yeah. And so it was somewhere in the middle of that where there was still like another 7 years until the actual movie came out. And he's like, if you watch Jason Goes to Hell, his glove comes up. And that was my first Jason movie. It's a weird place to start. But I watched the entire movie just so I could see Freddy's glove come up at the end. And
confusing point of reference.
Very, very much. And that's probably the reason why I didn't go back to the Friday the 13th franchise until actually like the first year I was on YouTube. And I was considering starting to do these horror review series. And so I watched most of the Friday the 13th movies in their entirety, seen pieces of them in their entirety for the first time in like 2017, something like that. They don't hold the same weight in 2017 as they did in the 80s. I've rewatched them numerous times. I get a lot of joy out of that corny 80s style. Like the 4th one, especially, I think it's just a good slasher film. But that's the one that that would be Sean's Child's Play for me. I have no nostalgia whatsoever for Friday the 13th. Thoughts on Great Outdoors with John Candy? Well, there seems like a couple of questions. I love Great Outdoors.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, wow. Guess we're watching 2 movies tonight. No, I'm kidding. The Great Outdoors with John Candy and with Dan Aykroyd. I think it's a great comedy. That's the best John Candy comedy that's not a John Hughes film. What about Scream? Do you not really?
Why do you hate Scream, Cody?
I mean, it's always the same killer.
Yeah, it's so repetitive. They keep having that same guy.
Cody, what about Scream? Do you not really vibe with? I know you're a fan of it, sure, but there's quite a few horror movies you prefer to it. A lot of that just has to do with nostalgia. Like I grew up with Freddy and Chucky constantly on loop. So those have a big place in my heart. But Scream, I told this story before. The first Scream came out and the second Scream the very next year. And for the long time, being that I was really young as a horror fan, it felt like this world that only I was in. My friends weren't allowed to watch movies. So I felt like the only kid on the earth that was allowed to watch horror. So it was like my own little secret place. And then when Scream 1 and 2 came out, all of a sudden, everybody in my class was horror fans. No. They were all wearing ghost fans. And so that just I was like a little gatekeeper. I was like, you're not a real horror fan. Shut up. And so I didn't really gravitate towards Scream for a long time because of that. Since then, I've gone back and watched them. They're very good movies, but they're very solid like 4 out of 5 kind of experience for me. Like,
well, and I think one of these, like, I get this with people like, "Why, Sean? Why don't you like Lord of the Rings?" It's like I've never crapped on Lord of the Rings. There are just certain franchises that the people that like them feel like we have to have it way up here. So if you don't, please explain yourself.
Yeah.
4 out of 5. There's no reason you need to explain yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to say. Yeah, they're really good. They're solid. Yeah, all of them are solid. That's even what we were talking about. Like, if your worst in your horror franchise is Scream 3, you're doing better than most every horror franchise. Like, that's a great review of the franchise. So the idea that you need to like explain why you don't vibe with it, there's nothing really to explain. There's just ones that we do vibe with, and you can explain that better than like, why do I think this thing is very good but not great? Yeah.
Why is Shawshank not your favorite movie of all time?
He's like, I don't. What am I doing wrong? I just told you it's great. It's really good.
We all have our preferences. That's why we all have different answers for what's your favorite.
Right.
Fill in the blank. Cody, I subbed your channel last week, becoming a big fan of yours very quick because I bought Resident Evil 4. Yes. I added you too, Sean. I'm looking forward to being with both of you guys. You rock. Awesome. Appreciate it, Terry. Jonathan Thompson, what is the one thing you hope is explored more in the Batman than in previous Batman films? The detective side. There you go.
It's very simple. Like the fact that it's based like very Seven-esque. That finally he gets to be the great detective. Like one thing we talked about, why it might be divisive. We've been speculating, or you speculated, because it might be slower because it's a detective story, and that might be off-putting to a lot of people. If that's why it's divisive. That's a big win.
Yes.
We've gotten a bunch of these fast-moving action. We've gotten Batman as the Punisher. We've gotten Batman battling aliens. We've got Batman with nipples. We've done all this stuff. Now let's make him a detective.
Keep coming back to the nipples.
He's the world's greatest detective. Let's do it.
Yes. So we're in agreement there. Hey, guys, long-time watcher, first-time donator. No question. Just wanted to show my support. Awesome. Appreciate it, Dylan. What is worse, Seed of Chucky, Jason X, or Leprechaun 4? That's the one in space. Have you seen? You have seen the Leprechaun movies. I have. Seed of Chucky is the one that I have the most personal disdain for because it's the one that I have more passionate disappointment with. I think Leprechaun 4 is a worse movie.
Leprechaun?
Yes. Leprechaun in space.
Well, so Leprechaun is one of, I think it's the only film franchise I set out to do a ranking for and went, I'm not going to do this. I just didn't like any of them. And there's a certain energy that I want to bring to my rankings where if I'm talking excited, I'm excited about something.
Yeah.
And I want to have, like, if I have something in first, I want that to actually mean something.
Yeah.
And if I watch those and I'm like, even the first one is terrible. It's interesting because it's got Jennifer Aniston and then the guy from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And of course, Warwick Davis is fun. But I just didn't think any of them were remotely good. Yeah. So I think for that reason, I would put Leprechaun 4 in last. I don't even think they're watchable, really.
The fourth one especially is just it's Star Wars like B-movie ripoff stuff with Leprechaun stuff with mid-90s CGI, and it's one of those movies that it doesn't quite cross the so bad that it's good line. It literally is one step away from it, and so it's as bad as you can possibly get before you start to enjoy it.
And then Seed of Chucky's like, he went for it. Like he went for like this terrible dark comedy idea that I don't think works. I don't enjoy, but I certainly have a sense in which I can respect the fact that he's like, what if the running gag is the kid pees himself? Like there's a side to some of this that is just so bonkers that I can respect it. And I like Jason X. I don't think it's good, but I have so much nostalgia for it.
That's guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. So, yeah. It's just so ridiculous. It's such a dumb idea, but it's a dumb idea executed fun.
I agree 100% with that. I've always defended Jason X for that. I was the perfect age when it came out. It was 2001. I was 11. And that was one of my first Jason experiences. And I was like, this is stupid, but it's awesome. It's like Jason Power Rangers. Everything about it is fun. So
it knew exactly how stupid it was. Like when it
wasn't like they thought it was a great idea. They were like, this is the dumb fan fiction thing that everybody wants. Let's do it and make it dumb as hell.
It's like when you go into the hologram and the girls pop up and they're like, let's do drugs and have premarital sex. And then they take their tops off and then it cuts to them in the sleeping bag. like, first off, That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Second off, they know exactly what they're doing.
Yes.
And it's fun.
Yes.
Terrible, absolutely, but it's intentionally terrible in the best way.
I'm going to take this one really quick. Have you watched Lost Boys 3? I loved 1, my second favorite of all time, and I watched 2, fine, 3 out of 5 little film, and I'm going to watch the third one, so is it any good? I think the third one is slightly better than 2, but I think 2 and 3 are some of the worst sequels of all time. They're decades too late. They are extreme, low budget, straight to video. I mean, your main stars of both of them is 40-year-old, 45-year-old Corey Feldman, and he's still trying to do the macho, and it comes across as a parody when he's doing it when he's in his 40s. They're terrible. That would be a fun review series at some point because I could just go off, but yeah, they're terrible sequels. Favorite Kiss song and favorite Rush song. I'm not passionate whatsoever about Rush, so I can't tell you that. Favorite Kiss song is Love Gun.
I don't like Kiss at all, so I don't have a song for them.
Mm-hmm.
Rush would be Tom Sawyer. I'm not a big Rush person either. Those are two.
Tom Sawyer probably would be mine too, but I think that's the one song everybody knows.
It's the obvious one, but it's also a really good Sawyer. It's a really good Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good song. Kiss is one of these bands that I was always kind of confused because they were so popular, and maybe it's just they weren't big in Texas, but like their songs didn't play on the radio.
Yeah.
And then when I started, like, of course I know who Kiss is, and they're a major part of pop culture. Tried to dig into it, like it just like even as they're like these big freaky clowns with long tongues, and then you listen to the music itself. It's like
so weird because their style would make you think it's like death metal.
Yeah,
and it's so not.
And maybe that's even the expectation of by the time I was like interested to find out who Kiss was, I was into actual metal. And then listening to it was like, I wanna rock and roll all night. Like, this doesn't go together at all. So I've never been a Kiss fan. Like I just don't. And I'm confused by the and like when I'm in high school, that 70s show comes out and they're like obsessed with Kiss, and I never got it. So not that I'm a big Rush person either, but at least they have a song where I'm like, that's a cool song.
Yes. Tomorrow you guys can expect one movie on a Blu-ray case from me. One is Perks of Being a Wallflower. The other is Fant Four Stick. Sorry, Cody. Expect one movie on a Blu-ray. Are you sending us something? Is that what he's saying?
I'll be driving tomorrow, so that's creepy. How are you going to know where I'm at, Daniel Skinner?
You're going to be driving on the highway, and then Fant Four Stick's going to hit you in the face. I don't quite know what you're saying, but Perks of Being a Wallflower is an amazing movie. Fan Four Stick is quite the opposite.
Amazing. Oh,
well, yeah. Muhammad, I'm intrigued to try Chili's Santa Fe this weekend. I found that they sell it where I live. I like their mushroom Swiss burgers. I'm a fan of mushroom. I'll try it off your recommendation. If you like spicy, zesty stuff, it's really good burger. Some of your favorite music biopics. I know we're going to disagree hard on this one. This is the answer to the question that we were asked twice the other day. Bohemian Rhapsody, I love.
How dare you?
Yes. The Temptations movie. It's a TV movie, but that's another great one. It's like 3 hours long. That's a very good music biopic.
I don't know offhand. Maybe it's just because I'm so tired.
Walk the Line, The Doors. There's been like how many Elvis movies?
Rocket Man,
3,000 Miles to Graceland. That's really good.
Saw that one in the theater. Look over 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
There you go.
I don't think I have a pick on my end of one that stands out, and I could just be blanking on a movie that I really love. But there's some I could be like I like Rocket Man, but like I don't go, oh man, Rocket Man. Like I just don't think to celebrate it as a favorite. Like that's not the way I think about it. So maybe it's just a genre that I haven't connected with all that much. Well,
I don't connect with it too much either because it seems like they all are sugar coated. Even Bohemian Rhapsody falls into that. Like that's the reason why people say like, you want a Metallica movie? I'm like, not while Metallica's alive, because they're going to tell you have to tell it like this. Jason Newsted was a jerk, and we're awesome, and we're innocent, and Cliff Burton's a god, and like all these things. That's going to be the Metallica opinion of themselves.
And Dave Mustaine is the running.
Yes, exactly.
That's what he gets. He's
the winter soldier that just keeps coming back. So
and we think we're gonna get back together, and then he comes out with Symphony of Destruction just to stick it to us for the Black Album.
Exactly. So yeah. I will say that I'm glad that Cody was able to convince me to watch Halloween 3 for the first time earlier today. I love that movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's very love or hate, but if you end up on the love side, it's fun. Do you think slashers will start to make a comeback due to the success of Halloween and Scream? I think they've been making a comeback.
I think by definition, they've made a comeback.
Yeah.
I like you just have to step back. The amount of money that Halloween 2018 made in the theater, there's not a comparable movie in the slasher genre with what it made in its opening weekend. So by definition, that is the biggest comeback it's ever had with that movie.
I mean, we've got Candyman back. We've got Scream back. We're all waiting on Jason and Freddy. Child's Play had a remake and a TV series. I think if there's any 5-year stretch you could say is a comeback of slashers, we're in it.
Yeah, and like legitimately, we're just missing Jason and Freddy.
Yeah.
And one of those is legal troubles. I don't know what the deal with Freddy is. But
I don't know either. Trust me. I ask myself that question every day when I wake up.
But yeah, I mean, the Scream just solidified that. Just another solid movie that got great reviews, seemed to be well received by the fans, and made money.
Yes. Do you guys buy your Batman tickets yet? Because I did. I believe Sean bought 3 or 4.
I didn't. Well, I bought 5 tickets for 2 different showings.
Okay.
And then I'm invited to a press screening. So I have 3 tickets to see it between press screening, or 3 showings: press screening, March 1st, IMAX in Waco.
I'm confusing you with Zach Pope. Zach Pope posted that he has 5 different showings. Yeah.
So mine was basically, I publicly announced that when I was going to see it opening night.
Yeah.
Just I'm trying to do more fan meetups now that the world's opening back up, and then whenever I travel somewhere else, I'm like, oh, I should do a meetup. And I started thinking, why don't I do those where I live? And so then whenever these big movies come out, I do them. So I announced when I was going to see it opening night. And then they announced we're going to do IMAX showings 2 days before that. And I went to go buy tickets for that in Austin. They were sold out. So I bought them in Waco, which is about 90 minutes away. And I was like, if I'm in a different city, I should probably. And then there was a lot of seats still open in Waco. So then I was like, I'll publicly announce that too. So then I've kind of got 2 fan meetups in a row.
And then it sold out in 5 minutes.
That's probably did. And then I got invited to press screening. So I have seen it 3 times, starting this Friday. That is this Friday. It's when they invited me to see that off in the distance, and I was like, wait a minute, that's less than 5 days away. I'm actually about to see this movie. That's a real. That's cool. Realization, because I've been here. I've only been thinking about coming here for so long, and then I've been here and I'm about to leave. And so then when I go back 2 days later, I get to see Batman. And then a few days later, I get to see it again. And 2 days after that, I see it again. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Hell yes.
Yeah, I bought tickets.
Yes, I have tickets for the preview in IMAX 2 days early, and I have a ticket for opening night. But I had to buy my ticket for the IMAX screening 3 different times because the local theater that has an IMAX was not available for some reason. And so I bought one in Macon, Georgia, which is about 2+ hours away. Macon, not the best part of town, some sides of it. So I eventually found that there was tickets in Jacksonville. Much prefer that. It was a bigger theater, easier drive, better part of town. Bought those. Then a day later, my local theater opened up. So I've had to do it 3 different times. So yes, twice. I will be seeing it twice that weekend. Unless it's just mind-blowing. Maybe I'll join you and do it 3 times. Aren't you tired of Q&As yet? The stamina is gone here. Keep it up, guys.
Yes.
Our legacy character has returned.
Say, hey, Griffin, could you fly out here to take my place for the last 30 minutes on here?
Yeah, we had planned on doing some actual recording that was going to take editing, but then we've just spent so much time just hanging out and doing other things that we decided to do live streams on Sean's channel.
We're going to do a Fortnite live stream. We're going to do spoiler reviews for Uncharted and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. We've had so many different ideas that we're like, what if we did this while we're here? And then, well, you guys have seen what we've actually done.
Yeah. And we're like, it's better. Let's just go live and just have fun. Demetrius, do you all think that Phase 4 of Marvel will filter out the carbon copy fans because of its horror themes and deep challenging lore from the comics, cosmic horror aspects that's surrounding it? Filter out the carbon copy fan. I don't know what carbon copy fans would be. I think it's going to lose some fans. I don't think it's going to be quite as mass appeal as the first 3.
And I think it'd be more niche. I think because you had a run that you have 3 movies per year. The amount of content they were putting out, everyone went to go see all of it. Yeah. And now there's 5 TV shows and 4 movies per year. Yeah. You have stopped watching them. Yeah. Everything. Not you're not watching everything anymore. You're watching the ones that interest you now. So you've already dropped out. You've already tapped out. If that's what you're doing and you watch stuff for a living, how much more so are there many more people? So I think it's going to be more niche for that reason. I think your question kind of inherently views some of the fans in a way that I don't understand the way you phrased it of carbon copy fans. I would have to know where you're coming from. From my perspective, my channel is built on covering Marvel stuff, so they're just my people. And I perceive a lot of it is also Marvel is a gateway to movies for a lot of people. And I see that very regularly because a lot of my fans outgrow me.
Yeah.
Because I haven't grown up. I'm still stunted development in my teenage years watching movies that kids like. So that I have a young audience, and a lot of them go off to college and they discover Martin Scorsese and Darren Aronofsky and Wes Anderson. Like, hey, why don't you cover this other stuff? Like, because I'm less mature than you. I might be twice your age, but it doesn't mean I'm less mature than you. But so I perceive it in that perspective of there's people that are very simple in their movie taste that like Marvel movies, but that's because it's their starting point, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and some people are getting more selective. Like, it took me a while for my dad to embrace Guardians of the Galaxy and the Infinity War and Endgame movies because they're so cosmic, space and everything, and he's used to grounded Captain America, somewhat grounded Iron Man. And so I think it's going to be, although it's difficult because the stories are so intertwined and there's so many details that you'll miss, I think people are going to be a little bit more selective about maybe what chapters they tune in for, and it's not going to be such a I have to see everything type of experience like it was for 10 years. What's a horror movie that you guys want to see have a prequel, sequel, or reboot? Also, favorite war movie. Keep up the great work, fellas.
Braveheart for war movie for me. Love Mel Gibson Productions, and so
either The Patriot or Hacksaw Ridge for me. As far as horror movie, Mel Gibson. Anything Mel Gibson's in.
He's the master. We were soldiers too in the mix.
What's a horror movie you guys want to see a prequel, sequel, or reboot? I can't think of one particular that I'm past. I want to see a new Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know what category that falls into, but I want to see a new Nightmare on Elm Street.
And Friday the 13th.
There you go.
So I mean, I think we've had so many reboots that it's like even Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, they had them 10 years ago. So that you're kind of running out of options. Phantasm.
Yeah.
We just got Candyman, so that one's off the table. So it's just tough.
Yeah, we got Evil Dead coming out. I mean, we're kind of starting to get through the
we got Evil Dead 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They've already all happened.
What's your guys' thoughts on A24 films?
Pretentious.
Yes. When I think A24, the example that always comes to my head is It Comes at Night. It's a movie that looked amazing in the trailer, has a great cast, is beautifully directed, where absolutely nothing happens. And it leaves you going, but the mystery is cooler. And it's one of those movies that unless you talk about how genius it is, they're like, you don't understand it.
So I took my wife and two of my because they were former students sort of at the time, but now just friends to go see it. That was fun because my wife, she walked out 5 minutes before it was over. If you've seen the movie, you know when she walked out. It was like livid, walks out livid. And then with my two friends that are at college at the time, and they get out of it. And one of them, who's the more thoughtful of the, in the sense, the person most likely to like be inclined towards this sort of movie. And he gets out and he's like, that was terrible. I didn't like that at all. Nothing happened. And he pulls out his phone. He starts looking up theories about it. And when you're talking, he keeps reading theories. And then 20 minutes later, we're talking about it. He goes, man, I love that. It was great. He literally went through the full spectrum of like, what on earth was that? And then, oh man, that was awesome. And in the one sense, that's what's great about them is that they get that sort of response. My wife walked out of the movie. And then my friend, who at the time would have been 1 year out of high school. So he's discovering more artistic films and discovering what he likes. So he goes to go see it because he thought what the trailer sold it as. Like, what's this thing that comes at night? That's not what the movie's about at all.
Yeah.
And so
paranoia.
Yeah.
What comes at night? I don't know. That's the point.
And then he watched it and then he discovered a thing that he loved.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm a simpleton. I don't get them. They're not on my wavelength. I've said it many times. They
have a couple of great ones, but their template is not for me. Like I think Uncut Gems was A24. I want to say Ari Aster stuff is
and I think Whiplash is that A24.
I think there's maybe 5.
Yeah, they've got stuff in there
love.
that's or maybe it's that Blumhouse. Let me get things switched up. But they have several, like everything doesn't fit the formula. But there's a lot of them that are these weird movies that they don't know how to market, and they market them to a mass audience. They're not designed for a mass audience.
You can see the logo A24 and know exactly what movie you're walking into and know exactly what crowd you're walking into when you review it. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. So they're great. They're my favorite.
Absolutely.
People ask me to do a ranking of them, and I'm like, I'm the wrong person. There's my peers have done it, and they would do a better job. I would not have the insight that you think I would have. I just wouldn't, because I don't get the movies.
Yes. Do you think slashers will start to make a comeback due to the success of Halloween and Scream? Did I click a repeat, or was that done twice?
I asked twice.
It was asked twice. Okay, well, we answered you. Appreciate the second super chat, though. Favorite Leonardo DiCaprio role? Costigan, The Departed. That was actually the movie that made me turn my opinion on DiCaprio, because I thought he was just the Titanic guy before that.
Critters 3.
Yes.
I don't think I have a favorite.
If it's not Costigan, it's Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I'm not. He does movies that aren't the things that I gravitate towards. So it's not to say that he's not great and they're not great movies. Mm-hmm. They're just not the things I gravitate towards to have a strong enough opinion to say this is my favorite. Mm-hmm. Favorite is a word that has weight to it, and I would just be saying crap.
Mm-hmm. Mount Rushmore of actors: Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Denzel Washington, and I'm blanking on a fourth one, but
Sigourney Weaver.
There you go. There you go.
Linda Hamilton and
yes.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
There you go.
And Will Smith.
So now I'm the misogynist pig, and you've taken the high road. Big macho guys, female strong leads. Quick trivia: who is the actor actress that played two different MCU characters in two different MCU movies? I'll give the answer in a future chat.
Who's the actor actress who played two different MCU characters in two different MCU movies?
Chris Evans.
If it's MCU, though.
Oh, MCU.
I don't know. We've literally been talking for an hour and 50 minutes, and we're still 30 minutes behind. So our brains are kind of fried because we also did a 2-hour podcast earlier.
Yes. Stanley.
Stanley. There we go. Boom. You won. You got this.
Have you guys ever walked out of a theater mid-movie? If so, what movie was it? Two different movies. One of them was not by choice. One of them was by choice. There's a movie, From Hell, with Johnny Depp. It's like a weird comic version of Jack the Ripper. My dad was dating a woman before he met who became my stepmom, and the daughter was extremely squeamish, could not watch anything without feeling like she was going to dry heave. So 15, 20 minutes into that movie, we realized probably not the best movie for her, had to leave. I walked out of Grown Ups. I did not think Grown Ups was very good. So I got about an hour into it, realized it was not for me, left.
Walked out. I went to go see American Psycho as a date from a girl from church.
Right about this point. Time to go.
You have a gift, sir. That is precisely when the girl from church date. I know how to pick a date night with a girl from church. So yeah, around the time of the menage a trois, and yes. It was time to go. And I've seen it since. It's a good movie, but not wrong context. And likewise, 6 years later with my wife, went to go see Crank, and she was expecting Transporter, and she got Grand Theft Auto, and so we didn't stick around too long on that one. Because I've seen it since another one. It's like, that's just not for my wife.
Yeah. The answer is Michelle Yeoh, Random Revenger in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and the Ant and Shang-Chi.
That's true.
Okay, cool. What sequel would you like to see? For me, a sequel to The Faculty. I think we're way too far from that. If it had hit like they wanted it to, like Scream, that would have been amazing. But that day is past.
And the Faculty, fun fact: one of the groomsmen from my wedding, who's still my workout partner, best friend to this day, see him multiple times every single week. He's in The Faculty as a extra.
Okay.
And he's in the trailer too. In the scene where it's like, is this going to be on the test? This is the test. You could see him in that shot that's in the trailer in the classroom. He's wearing I think a purple shirt. And then when Ella J. Wood leaves and he knows something's up, and they're doing all these close-ups of the faces. His is one of the close-ups.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And then likewise, they use that footage in the trailer for another Brick on the Wall Part 2 from, what is it, Class of 99, whatever the name of that fake band was that they used for that. He's in that music video too.
Awesome.
So that was just kind of a fun little deal. And then he also made out with a girl for like 3 hours straight in the background of the hallway, and then they didn't use that footage in the movie.
Yes. Best and worst comic book movie villains. Way too hard to get into in a quick little Q&A. Best, probably one of the versions of the Joker for me. Winter Soldier is a great one. worst. Pick one of the worst comic book movies. And
Malkuth, Thor 2.
There you go.
Totally forgettable.
So I was stabbed in my parking lot over the weekend, and seeing you guys stream has been keeping me entertained while I recovered. Well, that's...
Oh, wow.
I hope you recover very well. That's pretty crazy. But
I'm glad we could help I mean, there's not even words to phrase what that experience is. I have no idea. I hope you're doing better.
Your guys' favorite ever movie ending? One of them is Rudderless. I will say that. I think it's a very resonant, closes out the themes of the movie. It's one of those artsy endings that is perfect for me. Too many movies, I feel like, end on this awkward note where there's still something left and they just decide not to say it. I feel like Rudderless is one of those movies that ends on the absolute perfect moment. So I will say that is one of them.
I don't know. I think Unbreakable. A lot of people think it's anticlimactic, and I get why. I think that's entirely fair. I think for the movie, the story they were telling, ending on the note that they did, where it is kind of it's very sudden if you don't realize that it's a story of becoming, and then it becomes this character, and it's all about discovering who you are. And so in that moment, you discover who the other character is. And so I think it's the ending that fits the movie that was being made. And I totally get why you want to see something else. You want to see this other thing.
Yeah, we wanted that for almost 2 decades.
And I think that should have been the sequel that came out 5 years later. But for the story that they told, that little bit was the epilogue that tied everything together. That wasn't supposed to be now. Well, let's see him battle it out. The Unbreakable Man battles Mr. Glass. Well, that's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, exactly. Eric 37, who was better, Tyler Mane as Michael or Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy? I think they're both very good for the type of role that they were going for, but unfortunately the writing let both of them down.
Haley wasn't the problem with that movie. It's a job where you're not going to win many people over, but then the movie they made was the problem. He wasn't the problem.
Moments of him is the best part of the movie. And Tyler Mane is perfect for a ridiculous, heightened, 7-foot tall music video style of Halloween that Rob Zombie was trying to make.
Like the problem wasn't like him.
That
like he was written to be that just immediately imposing, terrifying presence, and then he did that very well. My problem with the movie is not him at all. It's Rob Zombie's dialogue and characters.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes straight is my problem. Thoughts on the Riddick series and Riddick 4 in the works? About what do you think about 2 TMNT rebooted movies coming, the animated and live film? I like the Riddick movies. I'm one of the few people that really liked the 3rd one. I'll take a 4th one. I mean, I think that I'd rather have another Riddick movie than another Fast and Furious movie.
I have a Riddick story that ties back to my previous date story. I went on a date to see Pitch Black with the same girl that walked out of American Psycho. And so we're just walking through my first girlfriend of the movies that we went to go see. So we went to go Pitch Black. And it's kind of weird that it's like this saga that we talked about 20 years later, because it was just like a totally sci-fi B-movie thriller. It wasn't that memorable. It's not that great. It's decent. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Riddick was not like this character that was like, whoa, Riddick. You didn't think about it anyway. It was just kind of like a standalone story where he was a character in it. Vin Diesel wasn't Vin Diesel when the and then
I don't know if he was ever Vin Diesel. Like for me, they wanted him to be. They wanted him to be so bad.
And so then over the next couple of years, then he gets XXX and Fast and Furious, of course. And so then suddenly it's like, okay, let's turn to this other thing. And then the director was like, no, let's do this big saga. And it was just like, I didn't like Chronicles of Riddick.
I've never seen the 2nd one.
It's bizarre, and I never saw the 3rd one. But it's just this bizarre change of direction that was like, this doesn't fit with the other one. That the character, like, what are you doing with the character? So I like the first one is fine. I'm totally fine to rewatch it. I did not like the 2nd one, and I just haven't seen the 3rd. I probably would like it because I think it's more in line with the first.
It is. The 3rd one's a movie of 2 halves. The first half is him on this planet fighting these different alien species and trying to heal himself. It's like it's Riddick in this world, and then the second half is where these pirates or bad guys or something show up, and then he's just laying waste to them. So it's more of the first movie. The second movie looked almost like Star Wars or something weird.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah.
And Ninja Turtles, I don't know if we're actually getting to. There's some Seth Rogen thing that we're getting.
Yeah, I think he's doing the animated movie.
I don't think there is. I don't know what live action thing you're referring to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm complicated. I adore the Ninja Turtles. I grew up on the Ninja Turtles, the cartoon and the original movies. The Michael Bay ones didn't really work for me. I had fun with elements of them, but they feel like they kind of missed the point, turning them into Hulk monsters.
And they're very much movies that were written and directed by a committee.
Yes.
Or like, oh crap, people don't like this idea. Let's change it last minute. Oh crap, we better not have William Fichtner as Shredder.
Let's have the
change it up.
Be a mech suit, and it was weird. I don't know if TMNT can be rebooted and not be an animated film. I can't picture what a live action film is that fits between the two extremes of 90s Jim Henson and Michael Bay. I don't know. All right. I think we're catching up to the end. Favorite AC/DC song, favorite Led Zeppelin song. Led Zeppelin song is probably Kashmir. AC/DC song, For Those About to Rock.
Ramble On. Or Led Zeppelin. My brain's getting fried.
The Uncharted song?
Yeah, correct. And then AC/DC, since all their songs are the same, they have like 3 songs rewritten a bunch of times. It's tough because they're also overused in movies. That there's a number of like, oh, this was really good.
I mean, Iron Man alone is kind of beaten into the ground.
Yeah, I like a lot of songs from both of those. They're very easy to listen to, classic rock. I mean, they're true classic rock songs, but also ones that we talk about, Guns N' Roses songs that you don't need to hear again. I wouldn't say don't need to hear again. I don't need them in a movie ever again.
Yeah.
Along with Beastie Boys, Sabotage, AC/DC, just please stop using the same 5 songs.
Back in Black. Yeah.
Thunderstruck. Like, again? What are we doing?
Would you guys go see the second Sonic movie? I think we're both shoo-ins to go see it.
Absolutely.
Not just because we cover movies, but I enjoyed the first movie, and the second one looks good. It looks a little more about what I would want.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the first movie. I think it's one of the better video game movies. And then my kids love them, so they want that movie put on all the time. So, absolutely.
Love both of your content. Was curious if either of you are fans of the Transformer movies. I have only seen the first 2. I loved the first one in theaters when it first came out. I don't know how that opinion would evolve. I did not like the second one, and I heard nothing but it gets worse from there ever since, and so I never bothered with 3, 4, and 5. And I didn't see Bumblebee. That's supposed to be better.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's actually, I mean, it's a boy and a dog story with Bumblebee. So
I've heard some people say it's as good or possibly the best one.
It depends. I mean, your taste and what you want, but it's ET with a Transformer.
Okay.
So it's just a better lead character, a better story with sci-fi action to it.
Okay.
It's not a very good franchise because the writing got so bad so quickly, and they just it was all about the spectacle. It was all about the show.
3.5 hours long, like every single
bloated
time.
Films that just go on forever and have very little plot. The first one with Mark Wahlberg was shot in Taylor, Texas, 10 miles from my house, which is also where they shot Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. So there you go. Fun fact.
What should I see, Scream 5 or Uncharted? I think it depends on your taste in movies. Scream 5, I think, is easily the better of the two. Yes. But if you are somebody that doesn't love horror, but you really love action, adventure, blockbuster movies, then Uncharted's going to be better for you.
Yeah. My wife asked me what she should go see in the theater. I think Scream 5 is the best movie of the year thus far. Not a lot of competition, but easily the best of the year thus far. But I told her to go see Uncharted.
Yes. Glad to see both of you together. Hope to see your Sons of Anarchy ranking soon. Sean, are you a fan?
I've never seen it.
Yeah, Sons of Anarchy ranking has been something that has been second or third place in like the last 5 of my Patreon pick polls. So eventually it's going to happen. Eventually it's going to default there. Got to make Sean review The Wrong Turns. He's already done the homework.
It's true. It's the secret ranking I prepped last year that never did. Some neat who's in the chat sent me all the Wrong Turn movies. So I actually did watch them like April or May of last year. I watched all of them for the first. I'd never seen any of them, not even the first one. And the first one I thought was a kind of a hidden gem, not an actual gem, but like a when you discover a movie from an era that you like with actors that you like, and then you dig it. It feels like, oh, how did I miss this back in the day? Because I like movies like this from that time period. I just missed this one. And then there's like 1,000 direct-to-video sequels that are very difficult to get through.
Absolutely.
It's grating and obnoxious. And then I thought the reboot was an interesting update.
I used 2021 as my year to get through all of the worst franchises so that I just have my homework done. I literally ranked and reviewed all of the Saws, or at least most of the Saws in 2021. Some of them were in 2020. But I did Saw, I did Wrong Turn, I did Leprechaun, and I did Hellraiser. So I've trekked through the mud, and now I've got nowhere to look but up. Which video game do you want to be remade the most? The original Metal Gear Solid.
I'm not a gamer enough.
Pac-Man. No, I'm just kidding.
Duke Nukem.
Yeah, there you go.
So the thing was they could be very cinematic.
Yes.
If they could pull that together. There you go.
I feel as though prequels are meant to be watched as the first movie, but people watch them thinking about the original. So then we say, why are they answering questions I wasn't asking? Just my take. Well, you can't watch them as the first when you've seen the others. You're mentally, you can't do that. I tend to have that problem with prequels because most of the time they tend to do it with characters that I don't think need a prequel. That I like the mystery. I don't need to know why Hannibal started eating people, for example. So that's my problem with a lot of prequels is I'm like, you're giving me canon answers that I prefer my own versions. I prefer the mystery. I prefer having debates about it versus
the mystery is more intriguing than the answer.
Yes. I mean, when you give me Prometheus and it's like, this is where the xenomorphs come from. I'm like, that's nowhere near as cool as the mystery.
And I think if for you prequels are meant to be watched first, that's cool. But they technically weren't. They weren't. The way they told the story was not that order.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, the way they told the order is what they intended to tell. If they thought this was the first story, they would have told that story first. And that's not what happened. So I just don't think that on a technical level, it's not technically true because they didn't tell it in that order. They told it the prequel second.
Yeah. And even if you can mentally get yourself there, I think it will negatively affect the films that came first. I mean, if you watched the prequels before you saw Empire Strikes Back, then that movie holds no weight.
Right.
Because you already know. You're like, well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah, it's like, what a great twist. That thing that you showed me over 3 movies.
Yes, exactly.
It's so the order that they told the story matters.
Yes.
That like the reveals are based off the order in which they told the story, in which case they revealed things to us, thinking, well, let's show it to you now.
Yeah.
And that's where they show us, and to do that, they answer questions, and it's like, cool. Or like Solo, where did he get the little dice that you didn't even know were important? Lifelong Star Wars fan, I was never thinking about those things. I wonder where he got the name Solo. I just thought it was his last name. Turns out it's because he's solo.
Yes. Dom had a brother all along. Hey, Sean, could you do a video ranking your top 10 superhero origin movies? I'd be shocked if you haven't already, but
I don't think I have.
Okay.
I haven't done that specific breakdown. So sure. I mean, I'm totally open to it. Just sometimes there's so many things you can do, and then it becomes a matter of timing.
Yeah.
If you do it randomly on a Tuesday, this many people watch it. If you time it when a great origin movie comes out, it does this.
A lot of it has to do with your mood too. Like you have millions of ideas for rankings if you wanted to sit down and write them all, but which one sounds fun today? You know. Favorite theater experience? I assume No Way Home. You assume incorrect. Avengers Endgame was by far my best theater experience. No Way Home, I had a good theater experience. It wasn't near the experience that he described that he had with his crowd. I had maybe 10% of what I had at Endgame.
I would go No Way Home, and it was like a 1, 2, 3 factor of this is the liveliest crowd I've ever been in, and I took my kids.
Biggest crowd I was in almost 2 years. I'll say that.
And my theater's going nuts, and half the fun was my kids didn't understand. So when a portal opened and we see Andy, everyone went insane and they went nuts. And my kids literally were turning like, what's going on? Why are people jumping up? And like, what's going on? And they didn't get it. And so afterwards, kind of like explained to them what that meant to all of us. And then the third factor, I did it as a meetup. And so we had to go see it. And then 20 people walked up to take a picture with me and stuff afterwards. Is a very, and as we're talking, more people, like a little kid wearing a Spider-Man costume starts going, I think that guy's a YouTuber. And he's 10 feet away, and I'm not deaf. I don't have great hearing, but I'm like, I think it's a YouTuber. And so I'm like, he's like, it is you. I was like, come on over. You can cut in line. You can come on over here, Spider-Man. He's like, what are you doing? You're like, I live here, and I actually promote this. So yeah, can I take a picture? It's literally why. Let's go for it, man. And yeah, it was pretty cool. And so I did a video audience reactions. That was a fan meetup, is what that was. I just told people I was going to be there. It was pretty cool, and talked with people for a while.
Awesome.
So there's like multiple layers of what made it really, really cool.
Where do you think they will go with Spider-Man next? And is it a lock that Holland will do it? I think it's pretty much a lock that Holland would do it, or we would have heard about it by now. He would certainly be foolish not to do it, because I haven't seen him. We'll see with Uncharted. The jury's out. I haven't seen him make a gigantic, awesome decision outside of Spider-Man yet. I think, well, at least what I'm hoping, we're going to get a more traditional Spider-Man story with Tom Holland. And I genuinely do hope that there's weight to this rumor about maybe revisiting Andrew Garfield and maybe even eventually Tobey Maguire. But Andrew Garfield certainly has a gap there that needs to be filled. His movies got cut off. I'm satisfied with where the Raimi ended. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but for a couple of reasons, it seems like they're setting up a more traditional Spider-Man story, and with some of the stuff with the MCU deal breaking off and what they did at the end of that movie, they're setting him up to do his own story.
Yeah.
Without propping him up with
and
someone
that's what
else.
I wanted for
the mentor.
Yeah.
That's what he needs.
Yes, absolutely. Trek Through the Mud, yet to see Human Centipede. Oh, God. Yeah, you're right. What are your predictions and wish lists for the final season of Better Call Saul? You guys are my favorite. Warms my heart seeing you face to face. Awesome. Final predictions, wish list. I don't really have one. Anything that I come up with, Vince Gilligan's going to have something 1,000 times better. So I'm curious at where the current storyline, black and white, Cinnabon version of Better Call Saul is going to eventually converge. Like where his story is literally going to end, and then where is it going to tie back into Breaking Bad? But I have no expectations, because I know whatever he's going to give me is going to be amazing. There's no reason to doubt Vince Gilligan at this point.
Yeah. It's not this type of show where predictions feel.
Yeah.
Like, well, I hope that by the end of the show, it ties into Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Right. That's the concept of the show. And, we talked about prequels and speak poorly of them. This would be an example of one that's just doing its own thing.
Yeah.
Is building out the world, and you don't feel like, oh, now I know. And it like
and it's answering questions that we were asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ones that are interesting, where you see a character that is this movable?
Yes.
Like, that guy right there, we're introduced to him like this, and he's so weak and frail, but at the same time, there's this story there. And then you do Better Call Saul, and you see that, and it like fleshes out in the right way. It's like the right way to do a prequel.
Exactly.
So I'm very curious about this love life of him, this wife of his, how that plays out, where that's going.
Yeah, because clearly that's ill-fated. That's the biggest question, where I'm like,
right,
what's going on? And you're caught up. Okay, so it ends seeming like now she's going to go too far.
Yes. I guess the other one about Hawkeye, the main the guy that's, I guess, the current main villain on Better Call Saul is in Hawkeye.
Okay.
The guy that didn't die. That's charming but super evil.
Yeah.
That he's a big character in Hawkeye.
I'm 60% more interested now.
So he's not as involved necessarily as you might end up wanting, but he's just as fun. He's really fun in it, with the way that he's used in the show.
Will you guys watch Bloodfather together before Sean leaves? Marshall Boy knows his Sean and Cody history.
This is good.
Appreciate both of your guys' work. So probably not, but the significance of that question is that's literally what made me and Sean meet, is that we both reviewed this very independent Mel Gibson movie that nobody except Sean and Cody were talking about. And so that was the spark of the friendship of the century right there. All right, we are almost at the end. Rudy Rodriguez, thank you. Question for you both. My two favorite actresses are Bruce Campbell, Kate Beckinsale. What are your favorite movies with each of them? Bruce Campbell, I mean, it probably had to be one of the Evil Dead films.
Briscoe County Jr.
Army of Darkness, probably for Bruce Campbell. Kate Beckinsale. I want to say Uncharted. Underworld 2, but I'm probably missing an obvious one because she hasn't just played Celine.
Total Recall.
Total Recall.
Much Ado About Nothing.
Click.
I'll go Evil Dead 2.
All right. Fake Jake, what are your favorite Arrowverse crossovers? Not a fan of any of them. Maybe the first one was good. After that, it kind of became like a shtick, and I gave up on Arrow and Flash in season 3, and I never watched any of the other ones. So you're asking the wrong guy.
I actually did a ranking of the Arrowverse crossovers after Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think it was like Crisis on Earth X or something like that. Mm-hmm. That seemed to be the one that had the biggest, like, realized we want everyone together and have big battles. Mm-hmm. And that's what that one was.
Yeah. Any update on what will be Tarantino's last movie? I have serious doubts that his 10th film is even going to be his last movie, but no update whatsoever. There was the idea of the Star Trek movie. Of course, Kill Bill 3 keeps getting thrown out. It could be another Western. I've heard that idea. I have no idea. Whatever it is, I'm sure I'm going to be there day one. I'm sure it's going to get lots of Oscars. I'm sure it's going to be great, but I think there's a 25% chance that's his last movie. He might go away for a while, but I don't see Quentin Tarantino retiring from filmmaking.
Yeah, he says a lot of things, but there's not a actual thing happening that's locked.
Mm-hmm. All right, final question. Ever going to do a Red Dead 2 review? No. I'm burnout on the Grand Theft Auto games. Red Dead Redemption, I know this is an oversimplification. It's Grand Theft Auto on a horse. I played through Red Dead Redemption, thought it was good, didn't love it as much as everybody else. I got maybe 3 hours into Red Dead Redemption 2, got burnt out on it, didn't finish it. Same thing with Grand Theft Auto 5. I just don't care anymore. They've been the same game for 10 plus years now. Everybody says it's amazing. I'm sure the story is good. I just have no interest in playing 30 more hours of a game that I'm not really digging that much. All right, guys. So we went way over what we were projecting. Thank you so much to everybody. There was a ton of super chats. I apologize for anybody that did not get your question read. That it's very hard when you have 300 plus people watching most of it. But I will do another Q&A at some point. I'm sure Sean will do another one on his channel. He also does them 3 out of 4 weeks during the month on his Patreon page. I don't do quite that many, but I do Patreon Q&As as well. Yeah, I do. I do also commit to that. No, I do them as well. Not quite as often as Sean. I need to get better about that, but they are a little bit easier. It's not quite as much of a scramble on this. So if you guys enjoy these types of videos, either of our channels you want to support, it's not only the best way to support the channel, but it's also a better way to get your question answered.
And be a part of the community. Like when
yes.
do these
a little more personal.
Mostly every week do one of these live deals. They're an hour long. There's 10 to 15 people in there. So I actually get to know people and interact back and forth. So if you like my content, interested in supporting it, and getting your question answered, consider joining over on Patreon, any level, and you can join and ask as many questions as you want.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please, if this is your first time watching this, very weird video to find either of us, but hit the subscribe button. Sean Chandler Talks About is Sean Chandler's channel. I will post the link once we are offline here. And we are going to go chill out for the rest of the night before Sean makes his long trek back to the Alamo. Thank you, everybody, so much. This was fun. Great questions. We will see you guys again. See you later. Where's my outro? There we go. See you later.